Good afternoon. I'd like to call the May 14th Planning Commission hearing to order. I've asked Commissioner Byler to lead us in prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Hippen. If you would please stand.
We look to the heavens to give thanks and ask for divine guidance. Thank you for the spring rains and flowers, signifying a healthy earth that declares your goodness. Thank you for both the opportunity and responsibility that comes from living in Virginia Beach, where we enjoy ocean, rivers, parks, and wildlife. Please grant us wisdom and decorum to receive and respect diverse opinions. May we never take for granted the blessing of self-government and the opportunity to have our voices heard. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. My name is Holly Cuellar, and I'm the chair of the commission. At this time, we'll have the commissioners introduce themselves, starting to my right with our city attorney, and then Caitlin Alcock will introduce the planning department staff.
Tori Eisenberg, Deputy City Attorney.
Michael Motch, I have the pleasure of serving the city as the at-large representative.
Walter Camp, District 1, Kempsville area.
John Cromwell, District 2, Pungo and Blackwater.
Hi, Mike Anderson, District 3.
Hi, Catherine Byler, District 4, Virginia Beach Town Center, all the way up to Newtown and the Norfolk border.
Holly Cuellar, District 8.
John Costin, District 9.
George Alcaraz, District 5.
Brian Plumley, beautiful District 6, from historic SeaTag to the north end of Virginia Beach.
Susan Hippen, District 7, Salem, Green, wrong one, Tallwood, Level Green.
William Parks, District 10.
Caitlin Alcock, Planning Administrator. Clerking to my left, we have Kristen Bowers and Beth Mowry. In the audience, we have Deputy Planning Director Carrie Buchholt. With our Planning Administration team, we have Mike Hayes, Marshall Coleman, and Alexis Bailey. Other planning staff, we have Lane Harrington, Madison Eichels, Kara McLean, and then we have our City Traffic Engineer, Rick Lohman.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, if you could please describe the rules and the order of business for today's meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Chairwoman. The Virginia Beach Planning Commission takes pride in being fair and courteous to all parties in attendance. It is important that all involved understand how the Commission normally conducts its meetings. It is equally important that everyone treat each other and the members of the Commission with respect and civility. We request that cell phones be put on silent during this meeting. This is an abbreviated explanation of the rules. The complete set of rules is located in the front of the Planning Commission agenda. Following is the order of business for this public hearing: withdrawals and deferrals. The chairperson will ask if there are any requests to withdraw or defer an item on the agenda. Consideration of these requests will be made first. Consent agenda. The second order of business is the consideration of the consent agenda, which are those items that are the Planning Commission believe are unopposed and which have favorable staff recommendation. Regular agenda. The Commission will then proceed with the remaining items on the agenda. When an agenda item has been called, we will recognize the applicant or their representative first. Following the applicant or their representative, in-person speakers will be called next, and then the speakers participating via WebEx. Speakers in support or opposition of an agenda item will have 3 minutes to speak per item, unless they are solely representing a large group such as a civic league or homeowners association, in which they will have 10 minutes per item. If a speaker does not respond or if a technical issue occurs which renders the comments unintelligible, we will move on to the next speaker or the next order of business. Please note that the actions taken by the Commission today are in the form of a recommendation to the Virginia Beach City Council. The final decision to approve or disapprove an application will be made by the City Council. The Commission thanks you for your attendance, and we hope that your experience here today leaves you feeling that you have been heard and treated fairly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. At this time, I'd like to share with the public that we have a bittersweet announcement. Commissioner William Parks has submitted his letter of resignation. He and his family are going to be moving to a different district within the city. And I'd like to thank him for his service to the commission during his tenure since 2023. I found him to be a thought leader. He's an active listener. He works to solution, and he brings joy to the table and to this commission. We've been fortunate, and his daughter is here today and his family, so we want to thank them for their sacrifice. Has Sophia left? Oh, she was here earlier to see her dad. We recognize that it takes a family to support, to do these extracurricular activities and community service. District 10 will miss you, Willie. We will miss you, but we know that you're not too far away, that you're still staying in the city.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure to serve for the last 2.5 years on this planning commission. It is definitely a bittersweet moment, and happy for my family to be able to move, but I have enjoyed my time here, and I'm going to miss coming every Wednesday, once a month, to sit and be a part of this discussion. And any way I can continue to help, I'm happy to do so.
Thank you for that. Were there any other commissioners who'd like to make a comment?
Commissioner Parks, I've known you in business world, and but now in this end of the business, it's been fun learning more about you and your reservations of what you stand for, and I appreciate everything you've done, and I'm glad to get to know you a little bit better.
Commissioner Plumley.
I've really enjoyed getting to know you. You're kind of a stoic guy with a knowing grin most of the time, and the way that you deal with these problems. But as an architect, you have a vast amount of knowledge that has been really important to this commission. So maybe you'll consider, coming back at a later time, because you did such a great job. Anyway, thank you very much for the time that you served.
Commissioner Hippen.
This corner will never be the same, but I appreciate the wisdom that you shared with me, and thanks for what you've done.
Commissioner Cromwell.
I'd like to welcome Commissioner Parks to District 2.
Commissioner Byler.
Commissioner Parks, I am blaming your adorable baby girl for this move.
Again, thank you so much, Commissioner Parks. And just if everyone could stand up and we show our appreciation.
Thank you, guys. It really means a lot. And I do hope I can make it back up here at some point in my career.
Well, we look forward to that. Our next item on the agenda will be to vote on a series of minutes that the Planning Commission has held, and I look to the Commission for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the Commission approve 6 sets of minutes, which I will list individually, subject to the corrections and amendments that have already been submitted. These are the minutes of the Comprehensive Plan Workshop held on March 5th, 2025, the informal Planning Commission hearing held on March 13th, the site visit held on April 3rd, the informal Planning Commission hearing held on April 9th, the formal Planning Commission hearing held on April 9th, and the site visit held on May 8th.
A second.
Are there any commissioners abstaining?
Madam Chairman, I'm abstaining from April 3rd site visit minutes and also May 8th site minute.
Thank you, Commissioner Alcaraz. Commissioner Byler.
Madam Chair, I abstain from the May 8th site visit minutes.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Parks.
Chair, I'm abstaining from the April 3rd site visit meeting minutes, the informal Planning Commission hearing minutes on April 9th, the formal Planning Commission hearing minutes on April 9th, and then the May 8th site visit meeting minutes as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Plumley.
I'm abstaining from the April 3rd and May 8th site visits.
Okay, the chair will abstain from March 5th, Planning Commission Comprehensive Plan Workshop minutes, and the April 3rd site visit minutes. Having all that said, we have a motion from Commissioner Camp to approve the amendments, to approve the minutes with amendments, second by Commissioner Hippen, and with all the abstentions said.
The vote is open. By a recorded vote of 11-0 with the noted abstentions, the following sets of minutes have been approved. March 5th, 2025 Comprehensive Plan Workshop Minutes, March 13th, 2025 Informal Minutes, April 3rd, 2025 Site Visit Minutes, April 9th, 2025 Informal Minutes, April 9th, 2025 Formal Minutes, and May 8th, 2025 Site Visit Minutes have been recommended for approval.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Our next order of business is the withdrawal and deferral agenda. Please come forward if you have any items to be withdrawn. Seeing none, please come forward if you have any items to be deferred. No items to be either withdrawn or deferred from this agenda. We will continue then moving forward. The next order of business is the consent agenda, and I'm going to turn that over to Vice Chair Costin to run that portion of our meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Today we have 2 items on the consent agenda. These are applications that are recommended for approval by staff and the Planning Commission concurred. There are no speakers signed up in opposition. First item is HWG Virginia Beach LLC.
Thank you, Mr. Costin. Madam Chair, members of the Commission, Eddie Burdon, Virginia Beach attorney representing the applicant. The applicant is a entity that is a franchise creator and school operator. The Celebrity Schools, there are 27 corporate schools located in Maryland, Delaware, and Dallas, Texas. There are 31 franchise schools in Maryland, Virginia, Texas, Oklahoma, and Kentucky. The schools that are in Virginia are in Northern Virginia and Richmond. There are multiple in Northern Virginia. This school will be a franchise school. It will be owned and operated by Lisa Rudisil and her husband, Nikhil Despanda. Nikhil is a local civil engineer. Ms. Rudisil is a native. And that's the situation with regard to the school and the people involved. All the conditions is recommended by staff are acceptable and appreciate being on the consent agenda.
Did you have a question?
Okay. Is there any opposition to this item being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, we've asked Commissioner Parks to read this item into the record.
Thank you. The applicant is seeking a modification of proffers to modify the existing 14,681 square foot Rite Aid building into a child care center with a 2,700 square foot tenant space to be planned in the future. Modifications are limited to signage and minor site improvements on the exterior of the building, and the interior will house the child care center and tenant spaces. With no opposition and favorable staff recommendation, we felt this was appropriate for the consent agenda.
Thank you. Next item is item number 11, Colin and Skylar Miller property owners for conditional use permit. Please state your name for the record.
Colin Miller.
Are the conditions acceptable to you?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You may be seated. Is there any opposition to this item being placed on the consent agenda? Seeing none, we've asked Commissioner Parks to read this item into the record.
Thank you. The applicant is seeking a conditional use permit for a short-term rental at 1720 Baltic Avenue with favorable staff recommendation and the area already using similar short-term rentals. We felt this was appropriate for the consent agenda.
Thank you. Madam Chair, that was the last item on the consent agenda. The Planning Commission faces the following applications on the consent agenda. Items 1 and item 11.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion to approve by consent as read by the Vice Chair?
I'm so moved.
Second.
Hearing a second, are there any planning commissioners abstaining on these items on the consent agenda? The motion for approval is made by Commissioner Costin and seconded by Commissioner Hippen.
The vote is open. By a recorded vote of 11-0, items 1 and 11 have been recommended for approval by consent.
Thank you very much. If you had an application that was on the consent agenda, your request will now be scheduled for an upcoming City Council meeting. Staff will contact you about the date. For those applicants on the consent agenda, thank you for your participation. You may remain in our meeting, either virtually or in person, but you're also free to leave. Our next order of business is the regular agenda. And Madam Clerk, will you please call the first item?
Our first items are items 2, 3, and 4, Starling S Energy LLC.
Welcome.
Is anyone signed up to speak other than Mr. Wilson and Mr. Brown, who were
None
with
at this
Trina?
time. None at this time.
Okay, but Mr. Wilson, Mr. Brown are on WebEx, correct?
Yes, I have Mr. Brown, Mr. Seeker, and Mr. Watson.
Watson, okay, sorry, my bad. I got Watson. For the record, Eddie Burdon, Virginia Beach attorney representing Starling BESS Energy LLC on these applications. I think Marshall did a masterful job in the informal this morning of explaining the applications to you. The street closure application, I'll start with that. It's the simplest one. The applicant owns all of the properties surrounding this street. It's a paper street or semi-paved, say, paper street that was created back in the 70s when the property was zoned residential. Prior to the Navy condemning the development rights of the property for any residential use whatsoever. If it had been able to be developed residentially, it had houses on it a long time ago. And thus the need for the road does not exist any longer. And that will be, with the closure by council, will be acquired and re-subdivided into this property, which all the property lines will be vacated. And as Marshall indicated, there'll be a no ingress egress easement placed over the frontage on Dam Neck Road, with the exception of the access that we're closing today as a public street, but it'll be the ingress egress to this property. It'll be a part of the property itself. As for the rezoning from R7.5 to I1 light industrial on the northern portions of the property, the current zoning has no utility whatsoever. And the SEGA provisions in the comprehensive plan have recommended this for light industrial development for going on 25 years, maybe actually more than 25 years. So those are the two easy parts of this application. The rest of it, I think, is pretty straightforward, and we'll start with our commitment to our state's and our region's commitment to renewable energy. The renewable energy created by the offshore wind project of Dominion Power will need a facility like this one in order to keep and transmit the energy after it's converted so that it'll fit on the grid. That's the layperson's way of putting it. Most of that wind energy, although it obviously can be created anytime during the day or night, but at night is when most of it is created, and that's when there's the least demand, and that's where it will be offloaded into this facility. And then, as is stated in the staff report, 4 hours a day, it will discharge energy into the grid during the high demand time. And so as we as a country try to diversify and not just rely on coal and, more importantly, on fossil fuels, renewables, and that's what this is. That's the only reason this is here. We make it one thing clear that may have been some misunderstanding. I think it's pretty well set forth in the answers to the questions that we provided. This facility with this use permit will only be built if, and not really a question of if, but when Dominion Power approves it to be added into their grid. The money's not going to be spent. No one's going to develop this unless it's a part of the grid. And we're simply getting prepared for that. If offshore wind energy disappears and it'll never be built, and the conditional use permit, if it's granted, will expire because it's got to be activated by developing it within 2 to 5 years. So that's the reality. This is not going to do any harm to anybody, and it's not going to be developed this way unless it's a part of the grid. And I think we answered that question adequately. The questions that were asked about the DEQ filing status, and y'all can ask them again if I didn't write them all down, but the DEQ application hasn't been submitted yet. It's a stormwater application, and it will have to be submitted and approved. I would suggest that our city's stormwater standards are in excess of DEQs for the most part under our new policy, so we're not too concerned about that, but it will, if this is approved by council, again, this process will go on, the regulatory approval process, and that DEQ application will be filed, and obviously it's a precursor. The ordinance that we have in the city was one that our city staff researched, and with the assistance of a previous planning commission, those provisions in our ordinance were prepared. They were proposed after being researched. Public hearings were held by planning commission and city council, and the changes to the zoning ordinance were adopted, and we're dealing with the ordinance that we have today. And that's all that has been done within the last 5 years. So my clients, as most of you know, were directed to another site over a year, well, probably about 3 years ago now. That was not the best site to be directed to. And the wonderful folks in the adjacent neighborhood, who truly, I mean that, I'm not being sarcastic, they were wise enough to express to the consultant that was handling the interface with them that they should move this somewhere on Dam Neck Road. Exactly what they said. My clients listened, and that's where they are, in just the right location. It was the right location then, it's the right location now. And this application, with the conditions that staff has recommended, including the posting of a bond or letter of credit, and that condition as worded is certainly acceptable to my clients. The city is totally protected with regard to the decommissioning and the removal of these battery storage units at the end of the useful life, 25 to 40 years. Now, there were some questions asked that I'm not qualified to answer. That's why I wanted to make sure that Mr. Brown and Mr. Watson were on the WebEx. And if you all want to ask them yourselves rather than have me ask them, I think that's probably better. I know one had to do with the smoke. Well, let me, before we do that, let me do one other thing. I'm sorry. If you all see the plan, and maybe you all have it up in front of you, it's important to you all to understand where these battery storage units are the little dots on the plan, okay? And if you look, the BMP, which is very large, is the large orange area in the lower left. That's the stormwater BMP. To the north of that, there's a HRSD force main that runs through this property. That's what that line running through it at diagonal is. And you'll notice that the actual units, the actual cabinets are to the left of, to the right of that teal line. We are well over 100 feet from the boundary of the property. And back down in the lower part, we're 250 feet from the property line. We're not near any neighbors, and we're more than 100 feet. There's only one place that we are a little more than 100 feet from, and that's the northern side. Sorry. The northern, do I need to turn this on?
If you will, then yes.
Okay. The northern side is the only place where we're still more than 100 feet from any boundary. We've got an 8-foot, so we have an 8-foot fence around the entirety, as is recommended by staff. The type of fence that's recommended is absolutely acceptable to my client. And we're maintaining all the existing forested, vegetated area. And we also, when the area where the BMP is located, which we're 250 feet back from the property line, we will be planting the double row of evergreens on the west side or the outside of the BMP, and then you have the fence. Anywhere else where there's any gaps that anyone thinks there need to be additional landscaping in that 100-foot buffer, we'll plant the same landscaping if there are gaps in that buffer. So the buffer is what it's supposed to be under our ordinance. The other thing I'll mention, and it's in the answer to the questions, the industry standard is, and early on with this, there were problems in some places, but I'll point out that the folks you're going to be hearing from with your questions have done over 100 of these, and they never had a fire. All right, so the fire threat was something that in some measure had to do with people not understanding and learning from mistakes. Now these are spaced so that if there is an issue in one, then you don't allow the other ones to be a part of the conflagration. So, and they also have better technology in these now than they did when they first started. So there's no water going to be applied to any fire event. And I think that's explained in the answers if you all had a chance to read the answers we provided to the questions that you all had asked. And with that, I will let you all ask whatever questions you need to ask, and the gentleman will be happy to try to answer them if I can't.
Thank you, Mr. Bourdon. Questions for the applicant? Commissioner Camp.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, Walter.
Thank you very much for the agreement on the financial security related to the decommissioning plan. Do I need to read that into the record, or is it sufficient to say that the applicant is agreeable to the condition?
It should be made with the motion.
Okay, but I don't need, or I'll need to read the whole.
You'll need to read the whole condition for the motion.
Okay, thank you. Newbie.
We are totally accepting of the as worded, so that's fine.
Thank you. The second question is, I realize on the questions stated from the site plan that the response given about sound and noise stated that the facility will comply with an ordinance, but that wasn't the question. The question asked was, do we have an estimation of the sound profile that this facility will generate when it is operating?
Mark?
And what I'm really looking for, it's just the number in terms of a range of dBAs.
Thank you. And if you could please state your name for the record.
Mark, my name is Mark Polson. The facility will comply with the local zoning ordinance, but below 55 dBA. Typically, these things range between 45 and 50 dBA.
Thank you. My next question is with regard to waste batteries. Will waste batteries be stored on site for a period longer than 6 months? Or would you be willing to suggest that that will not occur.
You had the answer to that, or Joe? Mike and Joe.
Hello, my name is Joe Brown. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so the quick answer to your question is these batteries are designed to last for 20 years. And at the end of that life, we would not be storing any of the waste batteries at the end of life. We would be recycling them at a facility, probably US located. So there would be no storage of any waste battery products on site.
Thank you. The last question that I had was, and I wanted to preface it by saying, I appreciate your statement at the front in terms of finding a correct location for an industrial use. That inclines me to want to support this because as far as our overall comprehensive plan, it's in the right place. The reason for all of these questions is this would be the first such facility in our city, so it's an entirely new thing to find out about. I think we need to talk about the fire risk a little bit more. That it's only been 4 months since the largest BESS fire in the United States. And the state of California has stopped permitting these at the moment as they review their regulations. There have been 3 other large-scale incidents at these over the last 4 months as well. So I think we'd be remiss not to hear a little bit more from the applicant about your assessment of fire risk and remedial measures or better preventive measures.
I'm gonna let Joe answer that since he's the expert, and they've done 100 of these without one.
Well, our safety compliance officer is on the call, Mike Watson. If you could unmute him, he could better answer.
Mike Watson, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. I'd just like to, first of all, say thank you for having me as part of this conversation, and preface it that, my history is my career has been in regulatory compliance, and I'm a technical reviewer for national, international standards. I sit on the standard technical panel for these standards. So it's a great question, and it's a pertinent question. And, in order to ensure that we've done our technical due diligence, we intentionally light our product on fire, and we intentionally induce thermal runaway so that we can investigate the results of what would happen, right? So we perform this at the cell level, we perform it at the module level, and we perform it at the rack level. After all those tests have been completed, we collect the data, not only just what happens, but we actually collect the gas itself, send it to a lab to be analyzed so that we can pick and pull out every single hydrocarbon that was exhausted from the system and the percentages of each. And from all of this, we show that we actually don't need to do any further testing. However, because of market demand, and we want to ensure credibility for our product and build confidence in the market, we are in the works of actually doing a large scale fire test, intentionally burning multiple containers to further show if there is an event that it is, it's going to extinguish itself in a safe way. So in addition to that, because I lead all of the regulatory compliance for this product in the United States, we have a litany of regulatory standards that I ensure that we, are in compliance with, and not just internally, but I contract third-party companies to assess our product against these standards. And all of these documents are available to be reviewed and to be picked and pulled through. I regularly speak with city council members like yourself, with AHJs, with fire marshals. And I don't just present the story, but I also ask them, is there something that we're missing? Is there something that we could do better? In addition to that, of all the counties, I know you mentioned California, which is one of the most stringent when it comes to these regulatory requirements, which is great. There's one that's even more stringent, and that's New York City. And we'll let you know that as of today, we have 2 applications in with New York City to be able to install our product in their county. And this is a huge deal because once that is accepted, it'll be further evidence that we have done our proper due diligence. And I welcome any other further questions related to this topic.
So if I may ask just a clarification, would you concur that there are approximately 300 of these installations? Type facilities?
In, is your question throughout the United States or Trina specifically, or?
What I'm trying to do is scale your earlier response where you stated that you were involved in approximately 100 of these. And if I understand that there are about 300 in existence, it would give us some understanding that that's about a third of the ones that are out there. Am I on the right track here?
Yes, sir.
So to pull that all together, you or your firm have been involved in approximately 1/3 of the installations, and none of them have had a major fire incident?
Yes, sir, that's correct. This is also globally as well, so you are correct.
Thank you for the clarifications. Thank you, Madam Chair.
If I could add something to that, not on a technical basis, as you can tell, the testing continues and the improvements continue. Because of the timing of when the need will exist is not here right now. This will probably not come online, this facility we're asking to get approved today, for 2.5 to 3 years. So there will, in all likelihood, be further improvement as the next 2+ years go by in terms of the safety.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Plumley.
Okay. Are there established setbacks, cold zones around these batteries, and what are the distances? Because it's not set that I can see, and I've read through the application. Is that in a condition?
Well, it's on the plan. If it scales out. I don't have the exact number of feet.
Commissioner Plumley, are you asking?
The ordinance provides for what the required distances between them.
What is that?
I don't have it in front of me.
Okay. Is there remote monitoring systems installed for fire or detection of any kind of chemistry coming from this battery?
That Mr. Watson can answer that question better than I can as to the specifics of the remote monitoring.
Yeah, I'll actually pass this over to Joe Brown.
50-50.
Thank you. I'm unmuted now. Yes, the answer to your question is the site will be remote monitored 24/7, 365.
Is there going to be an on-site fixed water source like a hydrant or other high volume water systems nearby?
That's beyond our scope. We'd have to defer to Mark in the room.
What is the estimated cost of decommissioning this site?
The estimated cost somewhere between $2.5 and $3.5 million.
And what's the basis of that estimate?
My clients got it from some engineers, independent engineers, to give them an estimate as to what it would cost for this size of a facility. But that, again, that will be a part of the decommissioning, and it could be a whole lot different by that time.
What experience do they have decommissioning a site? You're making an estimate. I'd like to know what they base it on.
I'm just giving you the answer. That's what the engineers told us.
Okay. Is there an emergency response plan that's been gone over with the local fire chief for this site?
The answer to question number, where is it? We answered that question. They will meet with and go through this with the fire department.
Has there been any training of our fire department in how to address any type of emergency at a facility like this and what it would require for drills and training? I'm not asking John to answer that question. I'm asking you stuff. I know you did. I can see.
Well, since nobody's saying
I don't know
anything,
who's answering, so I'm not sure who to wait on.
I will say something. The fire department inspects all of these facilities on an annual basis. Each truck has a plan in that truck, that's on the truck, and it's on all of the stations that would respond to that incident. Even the battalion chief who handles the whole district has a copy of all these plans so that we can coordinate efforts in the event of a fire. We have been noted as being one of the best fire departments in the country.
And that was exactly what I was planning on saying.
I don't think that was your answer, Mr. Verdon. But let me just say
No, I think
this.
I will
If
answer the question. The question
Mr. Verdon,
is,
just to
my
interrupt you
clients
because I'm
will.
waiting for response. And I don't want to get into argument about it, but what I'm asking is of the applicant, simple question, have they gone over these procedures with our fire department to understand the peculiarities of this particular operation? That's the extent of the question.
The answer to your question is they will be doing that long before this facility is ever in place.
And so the answer is no.
No
So it
reason, no reason to. The fire department was involved in creating this ordinance. There's nothing in the ordinance that says that the applicant needs to educate the fire department before the application's ever approved.
I agree, it doesn't say that. So we don't have in place any type of drill for our fire personnel to handle a situation with a facility like that. And that's the point I'm trying to reach. I'm not trying to get in an argument with you. I'm just trying to make the point that our current zoning ordinance has very few restrictions on this type of facility with regards to design, operation, and decommissioning. And because this is a new technology, which we're talking about 20 years into the future, decommissioning, none of us really have an understanding of what the costs and requirements are going to be with regards to decommission. And I'm not trying to be rude. There's a lot of information to try to go through. And I've got folks online who I don't see when they are ready to answer a question when they're not. And it's a little difficult to have a hearing in this format. But I would like to know what is the current setback for this facility? What is the setback buffer all around where these are planned to go?
From each unit?
Yes.
I just want clarification on that. In the ordinance, we have a 100-foot setback from all batteries and structure from the property line, but I wasn't sure if that was your question or if you mean between the actual batteries themselves.
Well, the ordinance in Chesapeake is 300 feet. The area that we saw in the Richmond area, I believe, was also 300 feet for this. So I wanted to at least establish that this was going to be, if that was the plan, 100 feet. I don't know if you planned on a greater buffer than what the ordinance was requiring, but it doesn't sound like that's what's being required.
The buffer from adjacent in the northern, a portion of the northern is 100 feet. Most of it's more than 100 feet. And from on the west side, it's over 150 to 250 as far as.
Is that in a condition or is that just simply the design currently?
I'm sorry?
Is that a condition of the permit or is that just in the design that's before us?
Well, that's the plan has to be adhered to as it's a condition.
So that current plan is showing a 250 buffer on which portion of it?
The lower left, mid to lower left, as you look at it, which is the west side, it's probably actually, yeah, it's roughly more than that from Dam Neck Road. It's only at the north end that where that jog is. There's one unit that I think is about 110, and then across the far east side fence, and then it's a little, again, just a little over 100. And to the north is a very long, elongated property that has a nursery on the front and in the back, a lot of storage. There's no human occupancy, no home or anything like, and no the retail part of the business is out on Holland, very close to Holland Road.
And are the power lines, the major lines leading in and out, are they underground or are they above ground?
I don't know the answer to that question.
So the power lines leading in and out are above ground, and they'll be interconnecting to the existing power lines that run through the property. And then to get back to your question on spacing, there's 25 feet between each of the battery containers.
Okay, between the batteries, right. And I was really discussing the greater buffer between that operational area and then trees or other potential, fuel for any kind of fire, anything like that. That would be a buffer of how much around the whole thing?
Well, we're required to have 100 feet minimum, between the batteries and the property line, and then the appropriate landscaping, will be in that buffer.
Peter Farkas.
Okay. Those are my questions for now. Is there going to be any more presentation from the applicant, or is this all?
If no one else has any questions, we're done.
I can clarify with the clerk if we have any speakers.
We do not have any speakers.
Are there any additional questions? Commissioner Cromwell.
Mr. Perdone, in regards to the physical cables, how far away is the battery storage facility from the power source? I mean, the cable that's going to come ashore and feed the batteries.
Well, it's a connection with a Dominion's facility that will be adjacent to this on the property shown on here. And so the Dominion will bring the power to this facility. It's above ground lines. And then they'll also take the converted power into the grid.
Well, right, but what I'm saying, is that going to require another right-of-way if they're overhead coming into the battery facility?
It'll be on it'll be on the subject property and the property to the east. It won't be on anyone else's property.
But I mean, well, how far away from the right-of-way is it from the power lines, in other words, as it exists?
If you look up,
you get your microphone.
It's depicted on there. It's way back from the road. It's up in the right, mid-right. You see an area with a bunch of writing in the point. That's
right.
That's it.
Okay.
That's all the way to middle of the property, basically.
Right. Okay.
That's it. It's not out anywhere near Dam Neck Road.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner Mouch.
How are you?
I'm doing fine.
Good. I just have a couple of questions about environmental concerns, and if there are any with battery storage sites, and if anybody could speak to those, as well as if a fire does occur, putting it out is not quite as easy as a normal structure fire. Is the smoke that comes off of it any more or less toxic, as well as, I think being within the Southern Waters, the Southern Rivers watershed, I think making sure that we're being good environmental stewards for that is above and beyond what making sure that we need to make sure that's positive.
There's two. I think there's two questions. One real question for the experts. As we stated, the industry practice is not to pour water on it at all. Okay, so that's the runoff, and I think that, again, we addressed that in the questions. I won't read them to you. I know you've read them. I think the real question is the smoke, and I think that's a question. I've been wrong both times, but I'm guessing that's a Michael answer versus a Joe, but whichever one wants to answer that.
Yeah, hi, this is Mike Watson. I'd be happy to field that question. And it's a great question. And so I'll go back to, in order to validate what, your question, like, hey, what kind of stuff is coming off in case of an event? What are we dealing with? What are we looking at? And so that's the purpose of why we perform a thermal runaway event in the lab, so to speak, and we collect the gas that comes off of it, and then we have it analyzed. And I have a spreadsheet of every single hydrocarbon, and also its a percentage of that hydrocarbon. And I will tell you that in every event, it's almost about 50% is hydrogen, another 25% is carbon dioxide, another about 15% is carbon monoxide. And then there's, trace amounts of other very, very small hydrocarbons. But about 85 to 90% of the gas that would be coming off is hydrogen, carbon dioxide, and carbon monoxide.
Thank you.
And it's not in a contained area. It's
right. And then just tell us about the process that may be helpful. We're kind of at the beginning stages of this process. After this, you're going to go and get many different approvals from regulatory committees that beyond what our scope is.
correct. And obviously, after this body makes its recommendation, we'll go to City Council, and they'll have a hearing, and there may be other very good questions that are asked, because this is the first one. But at the state level, okay, DEQ is involved. At this point, it's stormwater. I'm not aware of there being any other DEQ permit, but that's not to say that won't happen legislatively prior to this ever getting permitted. Because we're going to go through this process with the city on site plan review, and I'm confident the fire department will be, right there, and we're happy to handle all of the giving all the information, helping them with questions and answers with our experts. It's going to be a collaborative, thing. That's exactly what it's going to be. It has to be. So again, we're 2.5 to 3 years away. Could be even longer, depending upon, although Dominion's moving pretty, smartly with regard to the offshore, based on what I see off of Croatan Beach all the time. They're definitely working out there. So, and the idea, Dominion's, they're completely involved in this. I mean, they're not, I'm not saying they will at all, but they may acquire this facility at some point. So their involvement doesn't happen without their involvement. So my point in that is that there are a lot of people with a lot at stake that'll be involved in it, and safety is clearly in everybody's mind. And these folks are not oblivious to that. And when they had the meetings with the CTAC community, they had multiple meetings with them. They've gone to great lengths, that they, and again, this isn't going there, and they didn't choose that site. That was somewhere they were directed by our economic development department. So that's not their fault, but they're going to do what's best for everybody involved, is from a safety standpoint, from a contamination standpoint. And we weren't asked to agree to put up a bond. That came from us. It did not come from the city. Okay, and we went to the trouble of contacting some engineers and getting an idea what they thought it would cost. And that's in the answers I gave you all as well.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that it was known that we're kind of the first couple of steps within a process that gets
this process
even
will-
more stringent. Thank you.
Commissioner Camp?
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on something Commissioner Mausch asked you. With regard to, I'll call them hazardous materials or the concern thereof, you mentioned the airborne issues, the gases. What about the residual physical material? When the lithium oxidizes, are we left with any heavy metals or other issues on the surface?
Well, I think that's my understanding, and believe me, I'm not holding myself out to be an expert. And again, maybe Michael or Joe want to chime in as well. The decommissioning process, okay, and the bond or letter of credit is for decommissioning, it's also for any remediation. Okay, it's not just decommissioning.
Yes, sir.
And so I assume, but don't know, that there is concern, not overly so, but there's concern that there may need to be some removal of soil at the decommissioning at the end, because there may be some level that may exceed some EPA standards in the topsoil or whatever.
So let me try to help you out. We'll do a couple baby steps and walk through this. My first question is for your technical expert. Would we expect the presence of heavy metals or other hazardous physical residue?
Hi, this is Mike Watson. Yeah, another great question. And so the answer is no. And the reason I say that is because as has been noted in this, conversation earlier, there's been many, let's say, fire sites throughout the United States. And each event, we learn something new. And to date, we have not seen an event take place. And then after the fact, there were heavy metals as a residual after the fact.
Thank you. I appreciate the clear answer. In terms of the gases, then, if I understand this right, we're talking about hydrogen and oxygen, which is similar to the major event, the Moss Landing event that occurred in January, where California evacuated over 1,000 people. Why would we have an evacuation called for if we're not concerned about the types of gases that are coming off?
Yeah, another very poignant question. And so Moss Landing was a great, let's say, lessons learned for the entire industry. And that unique setup is they had just rows and rows and rows and rows and rows and rows of what we call racks, all bundled together. And as a result of Moss Landing, you'll see post 2020, 2021, nobody has that formation of their batteries containers anymore. Now it's all compartmentalized, and that's why we have spacing requirements. And the standards always lag technology and they lag events. And as a result, the standards now have in place where you have to distance your containers, first of all, containerize them, and then secondly, keep them at a certain distance away from each other so that there's not propagation in the case of an event.
So my last question on this, as I read the U.S. Department of Energy incident reports, approximately 35 major incidents at these kinds of facilities, but the majority of them appear to occur within the first 6 months of operation. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So in terms of learning from what we've done before, these facilities are still failing early on, even the new ones, at a lesser rate, but that's when they're failing. It's not that these incidents were all a long time ago and now we don't have them.
Apologies, was there a question?
Yes, sir. The question is, do you concur that the rate of incidents is diminishing, but we still have incidents occurring within the first 6 months of operation at these facilities?
Yes, sir, I concur. And I believe a lot of that is due in part to the commissioning and the quality of the commissioning, not necessarily the product itself.
I didn't want to ask any more questions, but since you've now put that out, could you talk a little bit about your commissioning process to reassure the commission?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have, again, since we've installed, hundreds of these globally, we have a commissioning procedure that we have followed through. And again, as a result, we have not had one single incident. And in addition to that, we continue to hire, field service engineers that are in the industry that come from other companies. And so we continue to learn and we continue to build and improve upon our current commissioning. In addition to that, we also hire third parties that know what they might have more information than we do about the specific components that we're using to ensure that we have the highest of quality during commissioning.
Thank you, sir. Madam Chair, I'm done.
Thank you very much. Are there any additional questions for the applicant?
I'll just mention.
Thank you very much.
It's Trina Solar Limited, if anybody wants to look them up. My clients have engaged them because of their safety record.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bourdon.
Thank you.
There are no speakers signed up for this application, and so at this time, I'd like to open up the floor for discussion and to entertain a motion. Commissioner Plumley.
I have my doubts that we've done sufficient education on this subject in order for us to ask the proper questions. I would prefer that we defer this item and have someone from our Public Safety Department come and address some of these issues, like an emergency response plan, things that we could expect to have put in place. Whether or not, how much thought we've given it to this 100-foot buffer as opposed to the 300-foot buffer that Chesapeake is requiring, other locations are requiring. I don't have a true objection for this location. What I'm objecting to is our knowledge of these facilities being fresh and that we might need a bit more homework. I don't want to put these folks off forever in considering it. So I think it should be a reasonably trim deferral, but I think it would greatly assist the council in trying to get more information. And it's not going to harm them. If we're talking 2 to 3 years out on being operational anyway, we're not really slowing up the process or holding up, offshore wind by taking a little more time and making sure that we've been careful enough in this process, because this is the first location. Hopefully it's not going to be the last location, and the more we learn, the better off we'll be.
Commissioner Plumley, we have our zoning director here. Would it be beneficial to inquire regarding the 100 versus the 300 feet at this time? I realize you have more than one question, but.
Yeah, I think I have more than just the buffer, but the buffer sort of is the beginning where you say, okay, are the trees far enough away? Are we clear? Do we have this clear zone? Do we have an access point that's safe? So the buffer's sort of the first, but I think there's so much to this, and I've started with public safety because I think that's primary, but decommissioning and the cost of decommission are extremely important also, and I'm not really sure if we've done our due diligence on that. If the applicant is suggesting it, and if the applicant is saying, here's an amount, I think we need to be able to meet that and say we've looked into these items sufficiently. So I would request a deferral for all those reasons.
Is there any further discussion? Commissioner Byler.
Thank you, Commissioner Plumley. I concur with your thoughts that we need to know more. When this application came up 2 or 3 years ago regarding the SeaTac location, I bought the steel-toed shoes and I wore the hard hat, and I went out and I viewed one of these facilities, and it is sobering. And I don't begin to propose that I understand it all, but it really is a huge deal. And to have something like this go on this site is certainly preferred to the SeaTac site, which was in housing. But still, if we're putting it near an airport where there are pilots being trained, and sometimes, unfortunately, accidents happen, And if we had an accident involving one of the planes on this facility, and I asked this question directly when I was at one of the battery facilities, what would happen? And they said it would go up in flames. I asked how long it would burn or how long it would take to put out. And they said no fire department could put it out. It would have to just burn. And when I asked how long it would burn, I was told it would depend how much energy was in the battery at the time. And that varies throughout the day, throughout the week and month. So these are really big decisions. And it concerns me that our sister city has standards and we don't. So maybe we need to take our time and put some standards in place.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there any other discussion? Commissioner Cromwell?
I would like to hear from Dominion Power in regards to why these are necessary and how it works. Just some type of explanation of, you know, why is this necessary for part of the grid? So just, you know, a quick update, so to speak.
Commissioner Byler?
Commissioner Cromwell, I will just say to that, I understand there is a serious need for this, and it's all over America. It's probably all over the world, but certainly in our great country, we're balancing the need for energy at an increasing rate. With technology, we're going to have a huge increase in the need for storage, and I get that. And where else would we put it except in an industrial area where there are no houses? So I really am sensitive to that, and I think this is very likely a good location for it. I'm just concerned that maybe we don't have our standards in place yet. And I didn't hear any urgency that we needed to vote on this today. It sounds like we're still a couple years off. So if we take a month or two to consider this more carefully, that might be well advised.
Thank you. Commissioner Mouch?
Just for clarification, do we have a motion on the table? I think it's for deferral, but do we have a second? I was going to say we might as well just kind of go through the process.
We have no motion yet.
Okay.
No motion. There was just discussion.
Okay.
At this time, I can entertain a motion, and then we can have further discussion. Commissioner Camp?
I'll just say that I'm looking at the standards that we have now. And as I said in the informal, I am not satisfied with the standards we have now, but I appreciate that the applicant came forward under these standards and, as best I can tell, has done their best to satisfy them, and in fact has done a few extra things. In terms of some of the safety issues, our zoning code currently calls for that to occur after the site plan is submitted. And I understand that we'd like to see it now because it's the first time and it would reassure us. But I can't fault the applicant for not having done it because our code says they don't have to do that yet. This may be surprising, but I'm inclined to support this as being in the right place and meeting our guidelines that we have today for this type of industrial use. But I appreciate that as much homework as I've tried to do, because it wasn't on the commission at the time you heard the last one, I'm certainly no expert. I've tried to ask pointed questions that concern the safety, the environmental, the noise, things that aren't necessarily covered thoroughly. And I'm personally satisfied, but I respect my fellow commissioners wanting to investigate this further.
Thank you. Not yet, no motion. It wouldn't be appropriate at this time unless the commissioners, Commissioner Alcaraz.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My feeling is this is the second attempt with the same applicant for the same, purpose. And I think that the city's done their due diligence on what needs need to be found or whatever concerns, and I appreciate the rest of the commissioners, but I'm in agreement with Commissioner Campbell that I'm going to support it. So I just wanted that to be known.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Costin.
I understand that we can't know everything all the time, but there's an organization that works with we have UL, we have an FPA who follows every kind of fire and makes recommendations. Some of things are requirements that have to go on in this country. And sometimes you have to trust the experts, and I'm going to support it.
Commissioner Plumlee.
I certainly respect everybody that wants to do what they believe is appropriate in the face of this application with the law in its current state. I can't support it. I think it's not properly designed. I don't think the buffer is sufficient. I think, as Commissioner Byler pointed out, we have a city right adjacent to us that studied the problem and came to the conclusion there was a minimum requirement of 300 feet unless you receive a variance from city council to that buffer. But I certainly respect everybody's, opinion on this thing, and these are difficult questions. But not having an emergency response plan in place to address this peculiar operation, I can't support that.
Thank you. Commissioner Hippen, I saw your light.
I was on the commission when we had the first application. My lack of support for it at that time was because of the proximity to homes and the historic area. I applaud the applicant for finding a place that is in a better location. I also did the visit up to the Richmond area, I'm calling it Battery Farm. And I saw and asked questions. And since I was in aviation maintenance in the Navy, a lot of the questions that were asked around me, a lot of the questions that I asked just confirmed what I understood. I do believe that this is a necessary thing that we have to have. I do believe that the setback should be more, however, you are complying with the current ordinances and zoning. So with that, I support this because it's like having a battery pack for your phone when you travel. I'm going to put it with that, but it's more important because of the energy usage that we are getting in today's world.
Thank you, Commissioner Hippen. Commissioner Mouch.
I think we probably need to get a motion on the table. I think the discussion is good, but let's put something on there so that we can vote on it. I don't think that where I sit has really made my mind up. So I would like to make a motion to defer for 30 days so that we can get some of these questions that we have answered, and then hopefully we can take a vote and all feel comfortable on making that decision. So a motion to defer for 30 days.
Second.
Commissioner Plumlee, was that you? Okay. We have a motion on the table for a deferral for 30 days by Commissioner Mouch, a second by Commissioner Plumlee. Is there any further discussion? Commissioner Alcaraz.
I'd like to make a substitute motion to approve the applicant as submitted.
Okay.
Second.
We have a substitute motion on the floor to approve the application with a second from Commissioner Hippen. Is there further discussion? We'll vote on the substitute motion first.
Just for clarification, Commissioner Alcaraz, does your motion include the new proposed condition, or, because you just stated as proposed?
I was,
Here you go. Commission number 7 for the survey.
excuse me.
Have we voted on the substitute? Is this what's before us? Or we voted
The substitute is, we're asking, our city attorney is asking for clarification on the substitute motion.
Yeah, and include number 7 for the engineer's decommission recommendation. Yes.
Can you just read it into the record?
The whole
Because
thing?
I'm sorry, it's just
no, it's
not
fine.
anywhere except you guys have it.
All right, number 7, an engineer's report detailing the cost for the decommission and remediate the site shall be submitted and reviewed with the site plan and a bond and letter of credit to the satisfaction of the city attorney's office, and the amount determined by the engineer's report shall be posted with the city of Virginia Beach prior to the site plan release. The bond or letter of credit will be held under the decommissioning and completion of the site. Decommissioning is complete and the site is returned to natural state.
And my second is with that condition.
Okay, so we have a substitute motion on the floor from Commissioner Alcaraz to approve the application with condition number 7 as read, and a second by Commissioner Hippen.
Chair, I'd like to add something real quick, if possible.
Yes.
Could we also add a condition to provide a emergency response plan? I believe that was added in Eddie's email, that it will come at some point, but just to put that in as a condition, that it be approved by staff to their satisfaction.
I have no problem with that. It's contemplated in our ordinance already, but I have no problem with that.
And then the buffers would that be amenable to enlarge those if possible? The 100-foot buffer, since that seems to be the biggest concern.
Well, the buffers vary, and I think that if y'all would just send this to council, if council believes that their ordinance needs to be changed, they're the right body to decide we need to send this back and have changes made to our ordinance. That's the way the process should work. Sorry.
It's okay.
Mr. Parks, what was your first?
To add a condition that a safety plan be added to to basically be condition 8.
I'll accept condition 8 as stated by Commissioner Parks.
And I second that.
So now there needs to be a vote to make the substitute motion the main motion, and then you can vote on the substitute motion.
Okay, so I believe we could have some discussion at this point, and the discussion would be germane to the second substitute for the emergency plan. Would that be correct? Or the whole thing? The whole
I think
substitute?
you can talk about the whole thing, but then at some point, there would need to be another motion to make the substitute motion the main motion, and then that would be, then after that vote, you would vote on the substantive motion.
So we have an ordinance in place that mandates that emergency plan. So that is already going to happen. As far as the setbacks, that's a different story.
Correct. Discussion, Commissioner Camp?
So I'm in agreement with Commissioner Hippen on that our zoning code section 225.02 A3E says an emergency action plan is required by the fire chief of the city of Virginia Beach shall be submitted with the site plan, and goes from there. So it's already a requirement that they will have to conform to. So respectfully, Commissioner Parks, they're going to have to do what you're proposing to do.
Yeah, understood. I just wanted to make sure it was captured because that seems to be a big point of contention for a lot of the commissioners, making sure that that is known. So if it's in the ordinance, great. If not, I think it should be added as a condition. And I think what's in that plan is what really needs to be discussed.
Just for
Ms.
point of
Eisenberg.
clarification, even if it's in the ordinance, you can condition it if you want, similar to how most of the short-term rental conditions are replicated from the city's zoning ordinance. So again, it's completely up to the commission, but don't feel like you can or can't based on its presence in the ordinance.
So that being said, I would recommend that condition 8 be added to provide an emergency response plan that is to the satisfaction of the staff.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Ms. Eisenberg, if I can just talk this through. We vote on the substitute motion first, and so we'll be voting on the substitute motion from Commissioner Alcaraz.
So there'll actually need to be a vote to make the substitute motion the main motion. And then once that vote is completed, then you would vote on the substantive motion. That would be that motion that includes the 2 amendments. So the motion that we would be looking for right now would be a motion to make the substitute motion the main motion.
I move that we make the substitute motion the main motion.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Parks and seconded by Commissioner Heppen, that the substitute motion be the main motion with 2 conditions, conditions number 7 and condition number 8, which is the emergency plan to be added as a condition.
The vote is open. By a recorded vote of 9 to 2 to make the substitute motion the main motion has been recommended for approval.
Thank you all. Mr. Parks, thank you for your service.
We still have to vote.
We haven't voted
We're not
yet.
done. Motion.
We haven't voted
You're not
yet.
done yet.
So now the motion currently on the table is the motion that was made by Commissioner Alcaraz, and the friendly amendment was accepted that Mr. Parks recommended. So that would include what's in your staff report. In addition, the condition that is requiring some sort of surety, either by bond or letter of credit, and an emergency response plan.
Thank you for your guidance today.
The vote is open. By a recorded vote of 9 to 2, items 2, 3, and 4, Starling BESS Energy LLC has been recommended for approval.
Mr. Verdon, you can smile now.
Thank you very much. All right, Madam Clerk, you can call the next item.
Our next item is item number 5, 2501 Holland Road LLC. Yes, we have 3 speakers.
All right. For the record, Eddie Burdon, District Attorney representing 2501 Holland Road LLC. Jonathan Wetherington, who is the principal in the applicant and will be the developer and builder of the homes in this community, is with us. This application is consistent with every aspect of our comprehensive plan, and it provides for 33 much-needed residential dwelling units, and it is consistent with our agreement, our memorandum of understanding with the Navy in terms of the density. It is less than the density of the adjacent properties, but is very much in keeping with those densities. The staff recommendation for approval is very unequivocal. There's not aware of any issues. The existing neighbors have been discussed with Christopher Farms, with the president of the Civic League many weeks ago, and the adjacent neighbors to the west have met with Mr. Wetherington. The access meets all of our requirements along Holland Road, and again, it's completely consistent with the pattern of development, and it's been a number of years since anything else has developed on this small little piece that's left undeveloped. And the longer The longer we wait, the more likely it'll be greater density, except for the Navy. That's the protection here, because we've already seen that play out just to the west of this property. So be happy to answer any questions. The question I heard this morning about the fence, it is a maintenance-free vinyl fence, and it will be available for the adjacent property owners to take, those that have fences, to take their fence down and utilize it. It'll be maintained by the mandatory membership homeowners association for the neighborhood, and it can absolutely be beige or brown rather than, apparently there was some conversation about being white. It doesn't have to be. I don't think, we don't think black's a very appropriate color, but I think a beige fence or a brown earth tone color would be perfectly fine. And I think that's what the neighboring properties would appreciate. We don't want to have two fences if we can avoid two fences. I would also note that along the boundary with Christopher Farms, the way our lots lay out, the depth of the lot adjoins the houses to the north, and so you actually have one house occupying space behind two houses in Christopher Farms. And in doing this for all these many years, that's oftentimes a concern, that somebody's going to have two houses behind their house and they don't like that. Well, and the existing houses are going to have only one house behind basically two, which is, I think, a better situation in the eyes of most existing homeowners that would abut a new development. Other than that, be happy to answer any questions any of you may have.
Do we have any questions for the speaker? Thank you very much.
Our first speaker is Ken McSpadden.
Hello.
Hi there.
Please state your name for the record.
Well, first off, good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Ken McSpadden. In general, we support Mr. Worthington's changes, as he would rather have, or we would rather have, homes and not apartments like Silo 1 and Silo 2. Don't want to go there again. My yard backs up directly to this property as part of Princess Anne Crossing. The concerns our neighbors have expressed so far is the plans that we have discussed with the developer show Hollyfern Road or Drive becomes a potential cut through from Holland and Nimmo intersection. So that would significantly increase the traffic through our area. We have a park that's Christopher Farm and Princess Anne Crossing both use. And if you've seen anybody go through some of these neighborhoods trying to get to like Princess Anne from Holland, they would go pretty fast. So not sure how you're going to handle that. Access to this new neighborhood by emergency vehicles is going to be limited. Station 21 will have to enter through Christopher Farm Drive and then through Blue Bonnet, which is the second entrance there. And then, so there is going to be a median that's on Holland right now that will need to be gotten around. Somehow they're going to either have to make a U-turn or go down to Christopher Farms main entrance and then come through. Station 5 would have to cut through on Currycomb Court and then blast on through Princess Anne in order to get to Holly Fern and then come on in through that way. So those are a couple of things that we really need to think about, as Silo 2 thought not to think about the emergency vehicles. And they found that now that's a hard, it's a rock and a hard spot for them to try and figure out how they're going to get around it. Other than that, generally speaking, we support this this endeavor, and we've already met with Mr. Wetherington, and it was a very good meeting, so we had a good time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And just pause for a moment in case the commissioners have a question.
No, they wouldn't have a question.
Any questions? Not today, Mr. McSpadden. Thank you for coming out.
I'm off the hook.
Our next speaker is Maria Kalita, followed by our last speaker, Bob Longworth.
Hello.
Hello.
You can move the mic down closer. And please state your name for the record.
My name is Maria Carida. I live in this house for 32 years. And I'm very disappointed they won't open the road to come through our neighbor. And I apologize for my English. I'm Italian. So we are very upset, because, you know, the horses, beautiful view. We used to, for a long time, with my children, my grandchildren, go over there, watch those horses. And now they want to pull apartment or houses, I don't know. But they not gonna come through our neighbor, the traffic. I think it's very wrong.
Thank you very much for coming out today.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? Ma'am, just one moment. Ms. Cavita, we have a question. No, it's quite all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, there's a question.
Dov'è su casa? È qui, è questa. Dov'è? Where's your house?
La mia casa.
È su casa,
La
sì.
mia casa sta a Holland Road, last one.
Can you see that map? Sulla pianta.
Non la capisco questo.
No, capisco. Okay.
The last one, when you come to Holland Road, the last one before the old place over there.
Okay. Thank you.
That's where, you know, my house is for 32 years. So, va bene?
Io capisco, grazie signora. Ciao.
Any other questions?
Our last and final speaker is Bob Longworth.
Hello.
Hello, good afternoon, folks. My name is Bob Longworth, Longworth. I am a resident of Holland Woods, a resident since 1993 of Lapstone Court. And you can see in the lower right corner, it looks like two swimming pools. Those are across the street in my neighbor's yard. So that's where we live. My concern and the reason I oppose of this is the traffic. In the 32 years we've lived there, we've seen such an increase of traffic on Holland Road, particularly when they raised the road and opened it up. And it's very difficult for us to get out of Holland, Holland Woods development of 82 homes that we have early in the morning or the evening. It is really horrendous, and it's getting worse. As well as the speed limit is 35, and nobody adheres to it. Now, the police have done a great job out there. They've had speed traps out there by the church and by Princess Anne Veterinarian. But that is our concern, is the traffic. It's quite heavy. Plus, we also get traffic from Rolling Woods that have to come out and make a U-turn in order to head this direction, because there's no cut in the median by Rolling Woods, which has a school down there as well. So that is our objection. We appreciate the fact that they are homes and not condos. I do appreciate the fact to see the retention pond, because since Holland Road was raised, we have more issues with stormwater in our development. The water comes off of Holland Road, down Creekstone into us. And just like the last couple of days with this heavy rain, we've had lawn to lawn, curb to curb of water. It takes about 5 minutes to drain. Plus, the retention pond at the end of Lapstone Court has never gone above its banks until that road was raised. And the city is aware of that. And it has gone up about a foot. So I was concerned about the stormwater, that if it was connected anyway to ours across the street, we would have an issue. But again, my issue was the traffic. And on the Holland Road, it is quite heavy right now getting in and out with that. I thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Longworth. Pause for a moment. Are there any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Plumley?
So the BMP that is there, planned to be there, do we know, and this is, I think, a question for staff, will this take off-site drainage at all? Do we know?
The BMP that's planned for this development will serve just this development.
Simply
And
this.
if there's any drainage that's naturally occurring, then it will also accept that drainage.
So it could take some drainage from the roadway
If
adjacent?
it's currently draining that way, then the BMP will accept it.
All right, thank you.
If I may add, what happened was when the road is raised, the water comes down Creekstone Court, which is the road to come into our development. And then the way it's graded, it comes down then to our street, Lapstone. And we only have so many storm drains there. And the city has noticed that, but nothing has been done. But we get that extra water coming off of Holland Road. And that's the increase. It's not hydro designed right. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Longworth.
Good day.
Madam Clerk, are there any more speakers?
There are no other speakers.
Thank you. Mr. Bourdon?
I'll endeavor to be brief. Bob Walsworth, I'm sorry if I've messed the name up. Their neighborhood entrance is further to the south, it's not what appears, what's across from the entrance to this neighborhood, which has no median break and there won't be one. That's the entrance to a pump station. Their neighborhood entrance is further to the south, and there is a median break there, which explains his point about people from the next neighborhood south of theirs coming through theirs to get out because he has a median break. This neighborhood isn't going to affect the traffic pattern in his neighborhood. And the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit is because it's a residential area, and this is a residential development in keeping with the density of the rest of the area, and again, meets all the comp plan requirements and the stormwater requirements, which are much greater now than when any of these other neighborhoods were created many years ago. The first gentleman who spoke, Ken, talked about a cut through to Nemo, and there's no connection in either neighborhood to Nemo. There is a cut, I mean, it's really, you got to go up and around, but there is an access to Princess Anne crossings from Princess Anne Road. I guess it is Princess Anne Nemo, the 5-mile stretch, but it's certainly not it's not going to get anybody to this neighborhood any quicker, that's for sure, unless they happen to be on Princess Anne Road, then maybe there may be a car or two, but similarly, somebody in their neighborhood who wants to get on Holland Road will come through this. That's why we have connections to neighborhoods, and this is not a large neighborhood at all. I appreciate the kind comments about the neighborhood being a good fit, because it is a good fit, and the people in Princess Anne Crossings, like I said before, basically, they're not looking at two houses behind them at all. So it's a very, very compatible fit. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Plumley?
Mr. Bourdon, this 2501 Holland Road LLC is Mr. Wetherington's own LLC, and he is the builder. He's met with folks. He's explained that these are his elevations. This is what he will be constructing. Is that all accurate?
That's all completely accurate.
And is he here today?
Yes, he is.
Okay. I'm just going to ask him, can we build these things? You know, we need them. I mean, we get them approved, and then they sit there, and we don't always see them. People need places to live. They need places to live. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would now like to open up the floor for a motion and discussion.
I'll move to approve this application as submitted.
Motion for approval, seconded by Commissioner Hippen. Is there any further discussion?
The vote is open. By a recorded vote of 11-0, item number 5, 2501 Holland Road LLC has been recommended for approval.
Thank you all very much. Everybody has a nice Memorial Day, and again, really thank you.
Our next item is items 6 and 7, BT Associates LLC.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Chris Pachta. I'm a land use and zoning attorney with Walcott Rivers Gates here in Virginia Beach. And it's a pleasure to represent the applicant in this matter, BT Associates LLC. Along with me today is Mr. Tom Barton. He is the president of Beach 4, an affiliate business, but also an officer with the LLC representing the LLC today. You received a lot of information in the informal and also leading up to this. I'll make my comment somewhat brief and then invite Mr. Barton up to speak to his vision and the business as well. A couple things I wanted to mention first about the property as this was discussed some in the informal. First, at present, there's a parking lot on this 0.7 acres. There's also a 2-story office building that's vacant. And according to observations, inspections, et cetera, it's not in very good condition. In fact, the business owner across the street told me he's eager to see it come down. So the building is going to be removed with or without this zoning application because there's an application that's been approved for demolishing of the building. So once that's done, it will be a parking lot and only a parking lot on this property. Also, there's little to no landscaping at present. There's little lighting and little security. That's all significant because as we engaged with the adjacent property owners, asked them, for feedback, what they'd like to see, if anything different from our plan, they mentioned over and over again, please make sure there's a security component to this. So we've increased security measures. There's going to be an off-duty police officer that also secures the Beach 4 dealership. He'll secure this as well. The fencing and the landscaping, as well as the lighting, is going to provide pretty enhanced security measures that aren't there now. It's a rezoning. It's also a use permit application. It's a rezoning from O2 to B2. And most of the time that makes sort of no difference or significance, but to most of the public, when you explain that this is a parking lot and you say it needs to be rezoned, they don't quite understand. And I think that's significant here because it's being rezoned from office to business. And common, folks who've looked at this sort of in the neighborhood recognize that's a pretty similar zoning. I say that because there was some discussion earlier about, most of the parcels being zoned O2. Well, if you look at this whole property site adjacent to Lynn Haven and South Lynn Haven as a diamond, the bottom of it's B2, catty corner to that is B2, and across the former Norfolk Southern right-of-way, that's I-1. So it's actually a mixture of office, industrial, and business. The staff, and Mike Hayes has done a wonderful job. I worked with him on some applications in Hampton, and I think we're blessed to have him here. And I know that, and I respect him, and I know that his recommendation or staff's recommendation has been somewhat limited because of the 2012 SGA plan. But there are actually about 5 or 6 different plans that go into this area in this application. So our teams reviewed all of them. There's a Lynn Haven SGA, there's the existing comp plan, there's the draft comp plan, the outdoors plan, the shared use path concept study, and the active transportation plan. They don't all say the same thing. So there's some conflicting, there's some outdated measures in them. The 2012 SGA plan, which I know is referred to, it contemplates light rail or mass transit, so a transit station there. And as we know, subsequent to that, there was a referendum in the city where the light rail didn't pass. So staff, I understand, they're sort of limited in basing their recommendation on the 2012 Lynn Haven SGA, but luckily here we can sort of see all of this comprehensively as far as the planning goes. But more so than that, the land use, the zoning aspect of it, we have a present business that's not a new startup. This is a legacy generational business. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but I can guarantee at least 5 to 10 of us purchased our very first vehicles from that dealership. And this business has thrived. They've invested in the community. And quite frankly, at this point, they're out of parking. And they have new jobs that they need to bring in. They built a new commercial repair facility that Mr. Barton will speak to, and that's going to potentially land them 50 new jobs. But those 50 new employees have nowhere to park. So in order to actually have those jobs with residents filling them and being taxpayers in the city, we need more parking. The Beach Ford dealership needs more parking. So they'll move new parking, new vehicles over to this site to give way to these new employees to be able to park somewhere. Now, they're limited, as was mentioned in the informal, they're limited due to DMV regulations to supplemental licensing as long as they stay within 500 yards of the existing dealership. And that's why they can't just pick up and go somewhere else with this need for parking. It has to stay within 500 yards of the campus for them. So this site makes all the sense in the world to them. They own it, and it is a parking lot. It'll increase aesthetics, security, and pedestrian access. So this is a point that's kind of gone unmentioned so far I wanted to bring up, is that we're proffering to put in a sidewalk so that if and when VB Trail or something like it goes past that site, I say something like it because the 2018 shared use path plan actually doesn't have it going by, but I know the city would like for it to. What it's going to do is it's going to be able to connect that path so that folks can walk down South Lynn Haven, whether it's to church over at Grace Bible or whether it's to, Lynn Haven Parkway to pick up the HRT. But this sidewalk will allow that to happen. That doesn't exist now. They're going to put that there. And then finally, as you consider this, and before I invite up Mr. Barton, your draft comp plan, I know you're going to give some time to that, and it incorporates all these different plans, some of which need to be updated. It says that a goal for the inland context area in which this is to retain existing and attract new industry businesses. I can't think of a more mainstay, legacy, existing business to retain than Beach Ford. This will allow them not only to retain their business and keep it here, but also to employ more people to work for this company and then also live in this city. So with that, I'm going to invite up Mr. Barton to speak a bit more to the application.
Thank you, Mr. Pakta. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Tom Barton, Beach Ford. Thank you, Chris. I'd like to thank the Planning Commission for considering this request. It's interesting to watch you all work. It's a pretty intense job at times, as I've learned today, but I also want to thank you for all the work you do on behalf of the city. This is a project that we've had in motion for quite some time. In late December, we completed construction of a 55,000 square foot building. It is by far the largest, most expensive building we've built between our two dealerships. It's called a Ford Pro Elite Center. Ford Motor Company is fortunate, we are fortunate as Ford dealers to have 45% of the commercial truck market in the United States. So when we try to figure out how to allocate capital, do we go out and buy a smaller dealership, or do we do this or that or whatever? We thought it'd be best just to reinvest it back in what's already proven to be a good, successful business. So having 45% of the commercial truck market, that means, service vans you see, ambulances, bucket trucks, dump trucks, F-250 pickups and up. It just gives us a lot more flexibility because our retail customer, which would be you all bringing your car to us, currently competes too much with our commercial customers, and we need more square footage and capacity and heavier lifts and all that kind of stuff. So we built this building, and Ford has just had approved several years ago when we got into this. They're only approving 120 of these nationwide. So they're pretty exclusive. I believe the closest one like it is in Richmond. So anyway, we intend to hire anywhere from 40 to 50 new employees. Many of these positions will be automotive technicians, which these days, once you become a line technician and you've completed your training, you're making $75,000 to well over $100,000 annually. So they're really good jobs that we can retain here in Hampton Roads, and thank goodness, and this is maybe a little too much information, But thank goodness more and more young people are choosing to go to a vocational education instead of just a four-year liberal arts college. And they're learning a skill and learning a trade that by the time they're 25 years old, they will have not paid for a dime of training since they were 18 or 19. That's on us. And they'll never have to the rest of their career. And, you know, ultimately the brain surgeons of the Ford dealership technician ranks are called senior master technicians. And those are what we try to attract and recruit as much as we possibly can. We have 223 employees now, most of which can park in a monthly rented parking lot that Foundry Methodist Church allows us to use for 6 days out of the week. That's incredibly valuable. We also, anytime they tell us they want us to pave their parking lot or seal cracks or anything, we can't do it fast enough because it's so valuable to be able to use their parking lot.
Pardon me, Mr. Barton, we have a time limit, but I'd like to give you just a couple more minutes if you have a point or two you'd like to address.
Okay. We do 120 to 180 vehicles a day in our current service facility. A lot of those vehicles are carried over when we don't have the part, this and that, whatever. And that's also in addition to employee parking. When we carry over a car, we have to park it somewhere. So it's just really getting crowded. We plan to improve the site, put in sidewalks, and we just really need some help with our parking. And that's all. Thank you all very much again.
Thank you. If you would just stand by in case a commissioner has a question.
Sure.
Mr. Plumley.
Mr. Barton, were there a couple of other points you wanted to address?
Yes, I think if the VB Trail is built and becomes something, you all are going to find this mildly humorous, or maybe you won't, but why can't a car dealership, what if it's synthetic fuels, or what if it's vehicles running on hydrogen, or the latest craze with electric vehicles? People want to drive those things. Why couldn't I make that space something that you could benefit from if you're riding your bike from town center to the ocean front? Why couldn't I have somebody out there, and why wouldn't somebody want to take a free test drive, maybe in just the coolest whiz-bang Mustang we ever made? I don't know. But I think people would do that, and it would be a service to the community. And knowing the way we operate, we'll probably end up with every test drive you take in our cool whiz-bang Mustang, you get a free oil and filter change coupon. I don't know, but those are the kind of things that we would perhaps bring to the table should there be a VB Trail.
Thank you. Commissioner Byler.
Thank you for coming today, sir. And there is no question that you and your family are a huge asset to Hampton Roads and certainly to Virginia Beach. And I appreciate your contributions from a personal level on your family and also in your business. So that's solid. However, I do believe in the VB Trail, but it's much bigger than the VB Trail. And I would say to Mr. Pakta also, the VB Trail is only a small part of the city's land through there. And there has been an area reserved for mass transit. Now, it may not be light rail, who knows what it will be, but I think it's a misstatement to say if it happens. When it happens, the VB Trail has already been funded. This is happening, and it's important to the city. It's important to me as a planning commissioner. We have spent many, many hours and continue to working on the new comp plan. And to say that they don't all exactly say the same thing is fair, but they all have the common theme that near that, we need connectivity. We need things for walkers and joggers and bicyclists. We do not need bulk storage. So the only way I can support this is if there's a time limit on it. And then at that time, you can come back before this body and say, either it's an appropriate use and you need to convert it to something else, or if you're right and it never happens, then we'll extend it at that time. But that would be my position. So my question to you is, have you given any thought to putting some time limit on this? conditional use permit.
And I'm sorry, I should have said when as well back there on the bike path. I should have said if and when. I have given some thought to that, and with the amount of money that we're investing now to grow our business, we would be looking 5 years out, 6 years out, and we'd be trying to do some planning if that's the time frame or whatever the time frame is. But I think without this parking, my business is going to shrink, and that will cost eventually jobs and employment and all that kind of stuff. And I hate to go in that direction or suppose that might happen. But yeah, the DMV 500-yard rule that Chris spoke of is real, and it's relatively difficult to get an off-site license to have displays and whatnot. And so I just would ask the commission to appreciate the amount of money that we are spending to bring really good paying jobs or reasonable paying jobs to our community and keep the workforce here. And that's going to allow us to do it and not shrink our business.
Sir, I've got two questions.
Sure.
And I wanted to make sure I heard either you or Mr. Proctor correctly. By the way, it's the first time I've seen you not on TV too. Do you already own that property?
We do.
Okay, all right. That was question number one. Question number two, we talked about this in the informal session, and I wanted to bring it up here because looking at this area, and I'm familiar with the area as well. I'm sorry, I was over in Spain when I bought my first car, so it wasn't a Ford. But I like to drive a Mustang. Okay, I see the landscaping that will face where the VB Trail is, which is very important to a couple of our commissioners here. Are you willing to do more with that buffer to enhance the VB Trail?
Yes, we. If you look at our existing property along, I guess it would be North Lynn Haven Road, there's a series of trees that were required when we expanded that, and this is 30 plus 35 years ago when we paved that part of the land that we currently owned, and that was one of the things that we had intended on doing, but we got approval from the city and planted some trees, and there's a grass area there where a lot of the politicians like to put their signs and whatnot. So that's mainly what that's used for. But yes, the answer would be yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Parks?
So hearing Commissioner Byler's response, and I think that was kind of the general consensus, and I'm not trying to speak for everybody, but would it be amenable to have a 5-year type sunset clause to then come back before this commission?
I don't think so. I think we have now the third generation of my family entering the business, and I'm planning out more than just 10 years or 5 years for sure. When we finished, I guess it would be 28 years ago, we completed our current service facility, which is 53,000 square feet. And we've outgrown that. And it seems like just yesterday, we were tearing down our old shop that was the original Beachford shop that was built there in 1967. And so 20 years and 5 years is nothing. It goes by really fast. And, with my son now entering the business and learning everything the hard way and all that, I want to preserve it for future growth and prosperity.
If I could speak a bit too to the time limitation request and also Mrs. Byler's comments. First of all, I really respect Mrs. Byler's not only opinion on this, but passion for the trail and then also this type of use in the city. When I first reached out to Steve Lambert, who from the planning department is more or less the representative for the VB Trail and some of its design, I asked him specifically about this corridor. because, and Mr. Camp will correct me as soon as I'm wrong about this, but the current.
Mr. Lambert works for the Parks and Rec Department.
There you are. So the 5 phases or the 5 parts to the VB Trail are each phases that have to be first funded, then designed, then built. Phase 1, which is what you had talked about in, I think, a previous dealership application, had been or is funded and is in the process of design and construction. This specific stretch is likely, according to conversations with Mr. Lambert, but then also, my tour of the first phase of the trail, which Mr. Camp did a fabulous job conducting, is that this stretch will likely be the last phase, not numbered, but the last phase that's funded, designed, and constructed. That's really significant here when you're talking about timing, because for a few reasons. One, you have a present need for a business. They need to fill these jobs. They've built this facility. They need to fill these jobs, and they need the parking now. And not to correct Mrs. Byler, but what I didn't mean to say is if and when the trail comes in, but if and when the trail passes behind this site. The reason I say that is because, as I mentioned, you've got 6 different plans that kind of work their way into this area. One of them is the only design on the books for this specific area. That's the 2018 Shared Use Concept Plan. And I understand that the eventual trail right there may not mirror that, but that's the only design for that particular segment that you've got on the books. It doesn't have the trail running behind this site. That doesn't mean to say it won't, because when I talked further with Mr. Lambert, he said the preference for the city is going to be that they employ one of these new hawk signals, and therefore it does make its way behind this site. But that's not determined yet. So it's undetermined, it's unclear how this trail will look right at this site. That won't be determined until it's funded and then designed and then built. And what does the funding depend upon? Either federal, state, or local funds. It's not in the city's budget from last night. It could be in state or federal funds, but it's not yet. It doesn't mean to say none of this will come true, and hopefully in some capacity it does. I really hope it does personally. But that's not what you have before you now. What you've got before you now is an existing business with a legacy of investing in this community, with a need to provide more jobs in this community right now. So we'd ask that you not put a time limit on it, whether that's 10 to 12 years, as Mr. Lambert says, this could be funded and designed and built. But instead, you've got 2 options when it comes to time. You could impose something, or you could let the market dictate what happens. And so that's the request here, right, is that they've shown us, the market has shown us that Beach Forward is not only a good business to us in the city, but they've been a good business for several people to live, work, and play here. We'd ask that you trust them to continue doing that and let the market dictate what does or what doesn't happen with this property at some point in the future.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Commissioner Camp?
Thank you both, gentlemen. Mr. Barton in particular, thank you for coming in person. It's easy to bring people. It's impressive to see the actual business owner here today speaking on your own behalf. Of course, Mr. Pakta, thank you for being here as well. And thank you for coming on the educational walk that we did give. I think it benefits everybody to learn about these projects, how they're envisioned, how they may come about, and clearly you learned a lot. We learn a lot too all the time, and to that point, the listing of plans that you cited occurred over a period of years. And with all of these topics, we learn as we go along. A vision that may have been held in 2012 has been modified by other forms of transportation. In particular, you cite here the Hawk signal. For those who don't understand, the Hawk signal is a signal that allows a pedestrian or bicyclist to stop traffic with a red light on demand. That wasn't permitted at the time that those other plans were developed. So the only way to create a linear trail that would go past this general area would be to go to a crosswalk, a signalized intersection. There were no other choices other than build a bridge. Now that that is a permissible way to handle crossing a street, as you say, it may be utilized here. And we see that in phase one, that is from Newtown to Town Center, which is currently under design. And I cite that because that's our best indication of what this thing may look like. It's the one being designed now. And at Princess Anne Road, just east of Newtown, there's a proposal to put one of these hawk signals, and that would have been an unthinkable place to cross that particular busy road at the time these other things were being envisioned. So we're all learning. I guess what I'm saying by all of that is citing a collection of historical plans. Yes, we're uncertain, but we do have an indication of what is probably going to happen when the day comes. To the point of today, could you clarify, because it's news to me, that the building currently on the site is going to come down regardless of whether this application is approved or not? Did I hear you correctly?
That's why I stated, I'll let Mr. Barton confirm that.
Yeah, we're not sure about, we're sure of a couple things, how secure the building is and how safe it is and the age of it and the lack of upkeep, all that kind of stuff. So that was our intent.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, because as I've thought about this, and certainly I've thought about the progression of time and funding as well, as you know, I've worked on this trail for a long period of time. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen in 5 years. It would take 5 years, we've learned, from funding to design to build. So we're going to have the current state of affairs here for at least 5 years and likely longer. That said, the investment made to take that building off of this site and reduce it to a flat site, to me, actually aligns with the SGA plan. It aligns with a lot of possibilities for what could come in the future. I know that we can't drive cars on a pedestrian and bike path, but I appreciate your visioning of things that may come, and none of us really know what all those might be. I appreciate that investment to the point that I am much more interested in this than plainly applying the plan as it's written. Because if we did that and left this legacy building on the site, now we have an expensive thing that gets in the way of realizing the plan's vision. So your willingness to take us, I'll call it a half step, but it's a big half step in investing money and taking that building off the site, says we are getting toward the objectives of the plan. The bulk storage is not aligned. That it's the wrong place for that particular use. But that said, we have a 12.5-mile legacy industrial corridor that's not going to change overnight. And I can see areas where we're going to have a patchwork of uses along this. On the safety point, in what I'll call the northwest corner of your site, did I hear correctly that the applicant is amenable to pulling that fence back so we have a better sight line from your exit point toward westbound users of the trail?
Yes.
All right, very good. That completes my questions on this, and I look forward to a motion from fellow commissioners. Thank you.
Before we get to that, are there any additional questions for Mr. Barton or Mr. Pacta? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Anderson?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the application as submitted.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor for approval by Commissioner Anderson, seconded by Commissioner Plumley.
Can I address just a couple of issues before?
Yes, Mr. Plumley, you may for discussion.
Just for discussion purposes, this is already a hardened site, fully capped. As Commissioner Camp pointed out, there's going to be removal of an old structure that will benefit the vista along that area greatly. The applicant is going to install sidewalks, which will improve pedestrian access to that area. I think we've got other applications that will come along this line, but the fact that this is already capped and hardened is important. The fact that we have an ongoing concern of great importance to our community is important, and we need to address. These long-term plans that we want to shift to are laudable, but we've seen times when we've needed not to comply. It was just 2 months ago, there was a dealership on the other side of the highway that was further away from the trail, but was still within the SGA that we agreed to allow an expansion. I think it was the Hyundai dealership that we did a fairly large rezoning of that parcel. So there are times when we've deviated from the SGA. Last month, we upheld an SGA. One of the reasons for that was that had been a gateway where we had fully expended city funds, over $100 million for those improvements. Here we're in the infant stage of a plan that we will hopefully get to and we will move towards, but we have an immediate business concern that we're asked to address fairly. And so I, for those reasons, want to support that motion.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Commissioner Camp?
Oh. Well, I'll just say that normally I would be a strong supporter of the SGA plan. And I think I'm doing that by supporting this motion because of the removal of the legacy building. The safety factor has to be taken care of. They're amenable to doing that. We've talked about the screening. The applicant is amenable to doing that. That said, I don't view this as deviating from the SGA plan because that building will be gone.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Hippen?
Yes, I just wanted to add that I like the fact that you are going to put in sidewalks, that you're going to improve the buffer. And it seems to me that you are improving this, so you are being a good neighbor. One of the things, if you watch Planning Commission, I always ask about what the community thought. And I appreciate the fact that you've talked to the businesses around there and you've talked to everyone, and that Beechford is going to be a good neighbor. And with that, I do support this.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Plumlee. The chair does support this motion for all the reasons stated. I believe we can coexist. Consistent messaging from our city council is supporting our businesses and the trail. Mr. Barton has shown his vision for that, and I believe he has consistently been a good neighbor to the city. So if there's no other comment, excuse me, Commissioner Byler.
It looks like I'm the lone dissent. I do support this move for up to 10 years. But I don't support it long-term. I see the city investing in a future that does not include bulk storage along our VB trail, for lack of a better expression, because it will be more than the trail. But I certainly wish you good luck.
The mover.
The vote is open.
Commissioner Alcaraz had to step out. He had a 2:15 appointment.
Thank you. By a vote of 9-1, excuse me, sorry. Was that a mistake? By recorded vote of 9-1, item 6 and 7, BT Associates LLC have been recommended for approval.
Thank you very much.
Our next item are items 8 and 9, Virginia Beach Beacon Baptist Church and CFT NV Developments LLC.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Rob Beeman. I'm a Virginia Beach land use attorney with the Troutman Pepper Law Firm, here today on behalf of the applicant, CFT NV Developments, LLC, which is an affiliate of Panda Express. We have several members of our team joining us this afternoon that I'd like to introduce. We have Mike Everidge of Panda Express, Randy Royal, who is our project civil engineer on this site, and from the Virginia Beach Beacon Baptist Church, which is the property owner, we have Pastor Russell Robertson and Craig McManus, and also their consultants, Joel Ankney and Bob Carter. First, I wanted to take just a moment to thank staff for all their work on this application. Marcel's been fantastic to deal with as always, and we really appreciate that. The site that is involved in this application is the Virginia Beach Beacon Baptist Church property, which is about 5 acres located on Nemo Parkway, east of General Booth, right next to the Red Mill Commons Shopping Center. The church does not currently need all 5 of the acres that are currently in its parcel, and what they'd like to do is keep the western side, about the western half of the site, and continue to operate as they are now, but find a user for the eastern half of the site that's compatible with their use. The site is located in an elevated noise zone at 65 to 70 sub-area 2, and is also surrounded on several sides by commercial uses. It's got Red Mill Commons right on the eastern side, a commercial strip center on the western side. It's sort of catty corner to the northwest. It has the new Publix that just opened at Hickman Place. So for these reasons, we believe this site is compatible with the type of commercial use that the applicant is proposing as part of this application. We are sensitive to the fact that the site has several residential properties located to the south, and we've taken steps in the design of this property to make sure that there are no adverse impacts on these folks. First, the applicant has designed the site so the bulk of the commercial uses are up along Nemo Parkway, with the building set up towards the road and the order boards at least 150 feet away from the property line. Additionally, we're proposing a Category 4 evergreen landscape buffer along the southern property line with an 8-foot opaque fence, which should block views of the site from the south. Additionally, the applicant has taken the further step of conducting several studies which are over and above what we typically do on this type of zoning application, but are designed to measure the impacts on surrounding properties and make sure that we're going to be a good neighbor. First, we had Kimley Horn, who's here today. They had their sound experts conduct a sound study to make sure that we wouldn't produce undue noise that would impact these folks. Secondly, we did a traffic impact analysis. One wasn't required as part of this application, but we wanted to do that so we'd have the data and we could share that with the planning department. And then finally, we engaged Mike Sosha, who's one of the leading real estate appraisers, to do a valuation study to make sure there wouldn't be any anticipated impact on homes with commercial uses nearby. Randy Royal, in just a moment, is going to talk about the results of those studies. But they were very positive, and it did support the fact that this shouldn't have much of an impact on the properties to the south. Additionally, the applicant conducted extensive public outreach as part of this application. Starting really last summer, we made phone calls and had meetings, in-person meetings with some of the residents of the neighborhood to the south. Also sent out a public mailer to not only the adjacent property owners, but to the entirety of the neighborhood to the south, and then for the folks who live across Nemo, kind of to the northeast. And then finally, we had an on-site meeting at the church back in March and invited folks to come meet our entire team and get information and have us answer questions. So with that, I would like to ask Randy just to briefly touch on the results of those couple of studies that I mentioned. And then Mike Everidge at Panda just wanted to say a couple of words about the company itself, if that's okay. So I'll pass it on off to Randy.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission. My name's Randy Royal, Kimley Horn and Associates, and I'm the civil engineer on this project. I had a lot to say, but Rob's kind of covered it all, so I'll talk about the studies that we did and the site a little bit too. I mean, we work with staff, and we tried to make a pedestrian-friendly site. So we've got the site plan up there. I don't know if you can see it or not, but a lot of sidewalk connections to Newstead and Nemo. That's kind of a thing that we do on all sites now, try to landscape them well and create a pedestrian type thing. The traffic on there really wanted an access on Nemo Parkway, and I had a very short and succinct conversation with Mr. Lohman, and we agreed very quickly that we were not going to have access on Nemo. And we talked about a turn lane, a decel lane on Newstead, which we've got there. And with that, Rick was happy, but as Rob said, we talked to the neighbors and they were concerned with traffic. So I wanted to do a traffic study. And I know you guys know about level of service and what you typically see around here. And level of service D as in dog is pretty good. We have level of service B as in boy here. So there's no impact. We've run the numbers, we've done a traffic study, and with what we're proposing, there's no impact. We've got fantastic intersection, level of service B. Noise, I've done a lot of noise studies. They were concerned with the squawk box, the order box, which Panda can control, but we took it at the normal levels, did the study, calculated what we would have there. And by the way, during the evening hours, 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., 55 decibels is what Virginia Beach requires, 55 decibels or less. During the day, it's 65 decibels. This, of course, is in a 65 to 70 decibel zone, ACUS zone. And we actually did measurements in the neighborhood during the day, not at night. We thought that might have bothered some people. They've got 55 to 63 decibels right now with the current. With our study on the site, we have 38 to 45 decibels, but it's going to drop with the residents being quite a distance away from what we have there. We've got limited hours for dumpster pickups during the day, not at night, to minimize that. But I mean, even with that and the beep, beep, beep that backs up, it's still nominal decibels to impact the neighbors. We had John Sosha do a real estate appraisal, because that's always a concern when you've got commercial next to you. These sites, of course, have Red Mill. You've got a lot of commercial already on Nemo Parkway. And what John did was look back, gosh, more than 20 years. And what he told us was that commercial development constructed since 2001 had not impacted. In fact, well, it had impacted. The prices had increased. Not many people had moved, which is something that you would see if there is really a problem area. Honestly, I think a lot of people like to be able to walk to this stuff, but there is not a negative impact from the real estate appraisal that we've done. I'm sure they will have their opinions. I think that covers it all. Stormwater. Amazingly, there is stormwater capacity in Nemo Parkway. I've been doing this 45 years. I have never had that happen, but it's wonderful. We've got to handle the water quality, but from a stormwater standpoint, that's not going to be an issue. So the engineering is pretty straightforward on the site, and hopefully we've done everything we can to mitigate impacts on the neighbors. I'll stand by for questions. Mike Everidge would like to come up here and tell you a little bit about Panda. Thank you. Or if you
Commissioner
want to
Plumlee,
answer
we're going to take
Okay.
questions for you
I'm
first.
not going to get away, am I?
Not yet.
We'll see.
That's fine.
Good afternoon, Mr. Royal. What I'm hearing are folks mostly concerned with significantly modifying the architectural character of their neighborhood with these commercial structures right there on this parcel. With the survey that was done regarding the impact to property values, can you kind of explain the methodology?
Oh, that's going to be tough. Other than its research, architecture, I don't think had much impact. If you know the area right across from Newstead, you've got Red Mill Commons, I think is the name of it, and actually the back of the building is what they see from Newstead there. So there's nothing very attractive about the architecture there. Honestly, I believe the Panda is a nice looking building. There's one up Princess Anne Road in front of TCC. It was just constructed. So it's not so much architecture, but I mean, we're willing, I say we're willing.
I mean, it doesn't look like a residence. You'd agree with that?
Agreed. Yes, sir. It's commercial.
And you don't know what the other structure is going to look like?
We do not, but we've proffered that it would be compatible architecture, so you're not going to have one thing to the Panda, not to the houses, but to the Panda. Not with a curved roof, but colors, material types. We kind of lean on planning to say this is a compatible use rather than doing what Panda's done and then maybe a red brick traditional colonial in there, which doesn't match.
So the study was, how was it conducted, the survey?
He surveyed what had been bought and sold in the area. He looked at prices when purchased, Originally, prices when sold, looked at how many houses were bought and sold. He actually also looked at some areas across the road that backed up to Hickman Place to see if that had had any impact. So the commercial along Nimmo, which is absolutely a commercial corridor, but you had houses that were in there probably prior to when Nimmo was actually built, and then the commercial came in, but there seemed to be no negative impact from that.
But he was simply doing a general market review as opposed to some direct survey, correct? He was just looking at past purchases and sales.
Yes, I'm not sure what else, what are you thinking he could have done? I mean, we certainly could do more if necessary, but.
But he didn't look at like communities, similar impacts.
Oh, no, just this area.
Anything like that.
Just this specific area.
Just limited right here.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Any additional questions for Mr. Royal? Mr. Beeman. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, everyone.
You can state your name for the record.
Mike Everidge with Panda Express. I'm the Executive Director of Real Estate. I had the pleasure of working with Panda for 19 years this past week. So I'm proud to work for a company that's family-owned and family-operated. We're privately held. We don't have franchisees that operate our traditional stores in the street. We're also great stewards of the community. I did some research just for the Hampton Roads area, what we've done over the last couple of years. In 23 and 24, the company has an arm called Panda Cares, and Panda Cares has donated $146,000 in education initiatives to the Hampton Roads area. Between 22 and 24, we've donated $280,000 to the Children's Hospital of the King's Daughter. In addition to that, we did a $1.5 million donation for a family lounge that was built and constructed as part of the Panda Care Center of Hope at the Children's Hospital also. So proud to work for a company that does that sort of thing. It is owned by Andrew and Peggy Churn. That's who the CFT is, the Churn Family Trust. So the family trust owns the land, holds it, and then the restaurant operates on the land. The family trust does not sell that land. They don't look to do a sale leaseback or anything like that. In the 19 years I've worked with them, I've not seen them sell one property. We're different in most QSR restaurants where we actually self-develop, buy the land, own it, and then hold it long-term. So that's a little bit about the company. I don't know if there's any questions about it.
Any questions for the speaker? No. Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Beeman at this time? Mr. Beeman, if you can come back up, please. Commissioner Camp.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So we have a requirement for churches to have 3 acres on site. And in this case, we're dealing with a parcel that is 4.94, call it 5 acres. The application seeks to carve out 2 side parcels, which will leave the church with 2.5 acres.
Yes, sir.
If only one of these parcels was carved out, currently it's 1.3 is the larger one, but it could be a little bigger, then you would be in line with our zoning code. The church would meet its 3-acre requirement. You would carve out one parcel to benefit the church, and that parcel would certainly be adequate for the purposes that you're proffering. The difficulty here is the middle parcel. When going for 2 businesses out of the church land, we're driving the church down below the 3-acre requirement. Would you like to speak to that?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. I appreciate that. As I understand the 3-acre minimum requirement for religious uses, churches, it's intended to make sure sort of a placeholder, kind of a one-size-fits-all type of regulation to make sure that on each individual site, the church site is large enough to accommodate the church uses so that other properties aren't affected. I think it's hard to apply a one-size-fits-all, with various properties. Each property is unique. Each property has different circumstances and facts applicable to it. And so I think it's important to look at each individual property separately. And in this case, the church would go down to 2.5 acres, but it would have more than adequate parking. There's 17 parking spaces over the minimum. They're retaining the buffering. They're not changing anything associated with their current use and shouldn't have any sort of impact on surrounding properties, whether the commercial on either side or the residential to the south.
So to that point, I read in the staff report that the church intends to expand.
It's possible. I can't speak to that. I think the pastor's here. I don't know that they have any immediate plans to do that, but of course, if they do, they're going to have to meet all the site plan criteria and the zoning criteria under the ordinance.
So
And I think they would have to have their use permit further modified, have to come back through this body.
I'm on page 2 of the staff report on bullet number 4. What we were handed states the church intends to expand the building on site in the future and add 25 additional parking spaces. It goes on from there. It's pretty specific.
As I said, the pastor can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not aware of any immediate expansion plans.
Well, I think I need some clarification here. I'm being told there's an intention to expand.
My name is Pastor Russell. I'm the pastor there. I've been there 5 months. Pastor Russell at Beach Beacon Baptist Church. There are no immediate plans, and I will speak to it in a moment about why we're doing what we're doing, and that would answer your question, but there are no immediate plans. That was a placeholder that was put in the file. I'm not sure even where that came from, but we do not have anything in concrete. Any construction on that site would not be expansion, it would be replacement in place.
I thank you for answering the question. I'm going to yield back to the chair to conduct the rest of the hearing, and maybe there'll be questions and discussion. Thank you, sir.
Are there any additional questions for Mr. Beeman at this time? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Madam Clerk, you mentioned that we had some speakers.
Yes, we have 3 speakers.
Thank you.
Our first speaker is Dennis Gronsip, followed by Ellis Brooks.
Excuse me, Carrie, can you help our speaker with the wireless mic? I had trouble with the word for a minute. Thank you.
Sure.
Pardon me.
When I used one of these, it was karaoke.
Oh, we could probably use a little karaoke right now. If you could state your name for the record when you start, sir.
My name is Dennis Gronseth. I'm here with my wife, Eddie Gronseth. We live at 1300 Glenbury Court, which is right behind where the Panda Express is going to open up. The Panda Express is going to open up. So when we first bought this house, I asked my realtor lady, what are the chances of them rezoning that? And she said she's never seen a church ever get rezoned to a commercial business. And I don't think she lied to me. She might not have known, but it won't bother me. But I'm going to talk about our personal thing. We bought this house, and we bought it to be a forever house. We raised 3 kids in this house. All 3 of them have college degrees. And we enjoy having our grandkids come down because it's relatively quiet. Now let me talk a little bit about the financial thing. We upgraded the house and we paid more than $200,000 upgrade. We added a pool, a new roof, which was a 30-year, and we added a new kitchen. We put Brazilian cherry hardwood on the whole first floor. We replaced all the windows, and the doors were highly efficient Anderson windows and doors. I built, when I could build things, a deck outside the back. We had one that came with the house. I built one that was a 16 by 16 foot, which had a pond in the middle. And of course, I had to get rid of all that because the leg. And we had it replaced with composite material I designed. And I also added a shed and a greenhouse to the property. Now, if this zone comes through, I'm never going to recoup any of that money when I sell the house.
because how many people would want a fast food in your backyard? Raise your hand. And the answer is nobody's going to raise their hand. The value of my property, I don't care what anybody takes a survey for, my next speaker is going to tell you it's going to crash. And we're never going to recoup all the money that we put into the thing, pay our taxes on time, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Any questions? Any songs?
Maybe later on the songs. Thank you very much, sir.
Our next speaker is Ellis Brooks, followed by Greg Grubbs.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Madam Chair and Commission members, my name is Norman Ellis Brooks. I live at 2317 Newstead Drive, which is on the corner of Newstead and Glen Burnie, across from Mr. Gronseth. I, along with other residents on Newstead, Glen Burnie, and Chapokes, still do not agree with rezoning this property. From a religious aspect, it's currently rezoned religious use, rezoning R20, and you're looking to zone it to B2 business. By rezoning a portion of this property and allowing 2 fast food restaurant type businesses next to our properties, highly unreasonable and will definitely affect our living conditions and most definitely have a negative impact on our property values. Regarding property values, one home on Newstead just recently sold well in excess of $700,000. So by changing this property and allowing these entities to build there are going to affect all of the properties in these 2 cul-de-sacs, which used to be called Nemo Courts, and at some point it changed and they included our homes as part of Red Mill. 10 years ago, we were faced with this same thing when Aldi's attempted to build an Aldi supermarket in this area on the same property values. At that time, I drafted a PowerPoint presentation and a document and went to each of the residents in those neighborhoods on Newstead, Chapokes, and Glen Burnie. 19 of the 22 signed that document objecting to having this property rezoned with that grocery store going there. So that if I went and did that same signature obtaintion again, there's no doubt in my mind that they would object to rezoning this and have these restaurant type things in our backyards. So some of the things that we included in the PowerPoint presentations and our excuses at that time was definitely the property values, increased traffic, increased noise, delivery trucks, garbage trucks, dumpsters, odors, rodents, rats, you name it. We experienced that already by living across from Red Mill Commons, because when we bought there was nothing but soybean fields across the street. Now, I heard their comment about the dumpsters. The dumpsters, we heard the same thing when they constructed Red Mill Commons. The dumpster would only be picked up in normal hours to where it wouldn't affect us. I can tell you now, at 2 o'clock in the morning, the dumpsters are being emptied across the street from us behind those pines now. And so they say that they're going to be emptied at a certain time. That's not the case. There are many different companies that operate these dumpsters, and they come at different times.
Mr. Brooks, do you have maybe 1 or 2 more comments? Your time
Yeah, I
is
see
up.
the red
I want
light.
to be sensitive.
So lastly, I just ask that each of you review the PowerPoint presentation and the email that I sent out yesterday. I really don't think any of you members or the city council would approve or want this type of restaurant any type of food establishment in their backyard or next to their neighborhood. So we object, and we thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Okay, just pause for one moment in case any of the commissioners have a question. Commissioner Plumley?
Mr. Brooks, you're directly across the street from, is it the TJ Maxx?
Yes, I live behind, I face TJ Maxx.
You face TJ Maxx, and are you able to walk across Newstead Drive to get to those commercial activities there or not?
No, we have to go, I mean, if you cut through the hedges.
You have to run through the hedges, otherwise you have to walk around all that.
Around, go into Starbucks.
To use any of those commercial properties?
Right.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
Our next speaker is Greg Grubbs, followed by our last speaker, Paul Rohr.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am, ladies and gentlemen. Captain Greg Grubbs, United States Navy. I come before you this afternoon in disguise, just in an effort, probably a failed effort to blend in with you. But neighbor here with Ellis and Dennis, and our neighbor and friend Scott isn't here as well, but the four of us constitute 50% of the homes on the street directly behind the proposed development, all retired or about to be retiring military. Plan to retire with 25 years of service here in a couple of years in what we planned would be our forever home with my wife, Emily, who's also a veteran, our two older boys, and our new baby boy who just arrived 9 days ago on May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. And so just not going to rehash, in an effort to respect your time, not going to rehash all of the points that my friends and neighbors have made, but echo all of those, and then just more of an emotional appeal to you that we want to kind of keep the neighborhood exactly the way that we found it. There's certainly not a lack of, not a deficit of restaurants or commercial property in the area, certainly not a need for a Panda Express specifically. There's one less than 5 miles down the road on Princess Anne, as Mr. Royal mentioned. And so just acknowledging, that I'm speaking to a very distinguished group of attorneys, entrepreneurs, retired fire department captain, retired Master Chief. Behind every successful Navy captain is even more successful Master Chief rolling her eyes. And so I certainly, appreciate everybody here as valuable citizens of what is certainly the greatest city in the Commonwealth, probably the greatest city in the world, I don't know. And I hope it's not too presumptive to assume that folks like us, veterans, that folks like you all would consider us, valuable members of the citizenship as well, and would just ask that sort of our wishes and desires are weighed accordingly and given some thought as you make your decisions. And I appreciate your time. Pending your questions, that's all I have.
Are there any questions for the speaker? Thank you very much for coming out today.
Our last and final speaker is Paul Rohr.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Rory. Our family owns 1304 Glen Burnie Court that is directly behind this proposed project. My father helped successfully stop Aldi from developing on this project, where the church has owned this property for a long time. I was told that it was zoned R10 originally for houses. The pastor and the church had it rezoned R20 for church use. And they had 2 years to build the church. They did not build the church. From what I understand, they have been trying to sell off a portion of the land to be commercially developed so they can fund building their church. I can tell you, Red Mill has blown up like crazy, the whole area. We have enough restaurants, shopping centers. What we don't have enough of is churches. This will so impact the value of our family's property. Nobody wants a commercial fast food restaurant behind their house. There's no way they can control the noise. The noise studies that I've heard they've done, I don't know what time of day they were done at, but they're not taking into consideration this area right here with, if you had 2 restaurants operating with cars coming in and out 24 hours a day, the trucks, the construction impact, and the fact that the only driveway entrance they have goes directly behind our house. So everyone coming in and off that property is coming right behind the house. They're talking about an 8-foot wall with a vegetation barrier. We have 2-story houses. There's no way you're going to be able to block the noise on the 2nd floor. The lights from the cars coming in constantly shining in your windows at nighttime. On top of that, there is a huge problem with rodents from the current restaurants, the shopping centers coming over. So badly that last June, we had rodents get under my father's house. At the time, didn't know it, ate a hot water pipe. They ate the hot water pipe. No one discovered the leak for weeks. And the hot water pipe did a steam up. It did $120,000 worth of damage to my father's house. He fought this so hard with Aldi. We're directly opposed to this. And as far as the impact value of the house, I'll go personal for a minute. My father died Sunday night. I literally have to be in an hour and a half at his wake. We had to have an appraisal done yesterday on the property. I asked the appraiser, if this project goes through, how bad will this affect our property? He said it's going to crash. And I said, explain crash. He said easily by 1/4 to 1/2 of the value of that property. He said nobody wants this in their backyard. And it's literally in the backyard. Please think about that when you all vote. If you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you for being here today, and please accept our condolences on the loss of your father.
Thank you.
Commissioner Plumley.
Yes, sir, my condolences as well. Personal condolences to you and your family. Were you able to attend this community open meeting on March 25th?
No, I was not. I was traveling at that time, and my father, before he passed, he was pretty much bedridden.
I see. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, I just wanted to confirm that was our last speaker.
That was our last speaker.
Okay, Mr. Beeman, if you'd like to come up, please, to rebut. Or possibly was the pastor going to speak? I wanted to double check. Yeah, that's fine. Pastor.
Once again, I'm Russell Robertson. I have been at Beach Beacon Baptist Church for about 5 months now. The senior pastor retired. He had been there for about 20 years. And let me just speak to why we are doing what we're doing. The church merged with the original church on that property. We've been on that property for 35 plus years. Back in '89, Virginia Beach Baptist Church bought the property. And when they bought it, they designed a building that was going to be temporary. And the reason they built it temporary was that they planned to build off to the side where this acreage is, and then take that building, pick it up. It's actually a bolted together building. And move it to another property and plant a church plant that way. And they plan to do that over and over. And so this church has been on this property for 35 plus years. We merged with them. And over the last 10 years, it's become apparent that the building that we're in is in bad shape. And so it was a temporary building. We've been looking at ways to get out from underneath this temporary building and build. There have been several opportunities. None of them have come forward. And so it's no secret that we are the eyesore of the area. If you know the building, you know the facility that we're in. If any home values are rocketing downward, it's because we have a temporary facility that just doesn't look very nice. So we are looking at replacing. And to do that, we need finances. So we've looked at opportunities to either move or to sell portions of our property. And Panda came to us with an offer. After meeting with Panda and the attorneys and the people there, we've since felt that they would be a very good neighbor to us. After reading about the things that they do in the community and in the schools, I can't imagine a better partner to be on that lot with their track record, their clean facilities. And so we are excited about them as partners, and we're excited that it will provide the opportunity for us to get out from underneath these temporary buildings that weren't meant to be done for a long haul. Like I said, we are not planning to expand. We are planning to be permanent in this community, and this is the path forward right now that we have. And so thank you for your time. Do you have any questions?
Commissioner Byler.
So please correct me if I'm misunderstanding, but what I hear you say is you intend to demolish your current building and rebuild on that site a permanent church?
Eventually, yes, correct. So the facility that we have we are worshiping in. So we would build off in the green space off to the right eventually and begin the process with the planning commission and everything and build a facility that would eventually be built in that green space area and then demolish the back parts of the trailers. We would still have to use the front part of the building for a little bit until we finish the full construction process. But yes, the plan would be to get out of these temporary, on the backside, I don't know if you can see them from the pictures, but on the backside, they're just trailers. And when we bought those trailers and put them in there, they had already been used. They were already past their life. And so these trailers are well past the end of their lives, and we've got to get out from underneath this facility. So that is the plan, to build off to the side, and then eventually, as we get moved into the new facility, to go ahead and raise that area.
So you're going to use the funds from the sale of this, if it goes through, to build a new building, which will either be on the same footprint or perhaps a little larger because of the accommodation of the trailer space.
Correct.
And from what I understand, you'll be under the 3-acre requirement, and then you'll have to come before us to ask for a special concession because you'll have too small of a site. Is that the plan?
I do not believe that is a part of anything I think that is a part of this agreement right now. That agreement would be a part of what we're doing right here. Am I correct?
That's correct, Ms. Byler. This application would permit the 2.5 acre site. The church itself is on a conditional use permit, which was originally granted back in the 80s and has been modified. So their site plan, I believe, is locked in by virtue of that use permit, if I'm not mistaken. And so they will have to come back through the Planning Commission and City Council process whenever they are ready to move forward with any sort of replacement.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Mr. Beeman, you wanted to come and rebut?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, just to supplement Randy's response regarding the valuation, I believe what Mr. Socia was trying to do with the methodology was he actually found that the homes predate most of the commercial development around that area. And so what he looked at is, once the retail, the commercial uses came in on either side and across the street, did that have any impact on the value? And I think what he found was the value stayed consistent in terms of what he would expect in that area, even had retail not been constructed, and there wasn't additional turnover, additional sales. So that was the methodology, and I believe the intention of that. And I think the fact that Mr. Brooks said that houses are still going for, $700,000, I can't remember exactly what the number he gave, but evidence of high value.
Commissioner Plumlee?
Mr. Beeman, you attended the meeting in March. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
With the community. And Panda Express came.
Yes, sir.
And you presented these architectural drawings.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that correct? Were there any alternate drawings presented for different designs for the community to consider?
Not that I'm aware of. I believe what
this?
we submitted to the city was what Randy made boards of, and we had those up at the meeting.
Because I was looking online, there's a vast of different, varying numbers of designs for these types of structures, and a way to try to blend them in to a community so they fold in and appear more aesthetically pleasing. And I was just curious to know if there had been a process of choosing this design for this location to apply it in a way, the elevation that would make sense at this location. What went into that thought process?
Mike, could you want to speak to the elevation selection? Thank you.
This is just the most current proto. This is the most current prototype of the building, is what it is, with our newest finishes. So we've obviously been in business since 1983. So there's various prototypes and types and shapes and sizes.
So if I understand you, this would be going forward your common footprint or your common
Correct.
elevation at all of your locations. Is that fair?
Correct. This is pretty much a standard. There may be some slight tweaks that meet needs in the specific area for your code, but this is the general aesthetic. Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Was there anything else? Have you finished, Mr. Beaman, your rebut? Okay, thank you very much. So at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion and discussion. Commissioner Byler?
I have a motion. I also have a couple comments. I do sympathize with the residents. I certainly do. But being familiar with that area, the proposal seems to match everything else that is in that area. It doesn't seem out of line at all. And based on that, I would make a motion that the application be approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion on the table from Commissioner Byler for approval, second by Commissioner Costin. Any additional discussion? Commissioner Plumlee.
I can't support this application. I tell you, this is an interesting corridor with a lot of commercial activity. But it's R20 zoned and we need housing sites, and here we are putting this backed up into a community. We've not said, okay, it should look this way. It should have a lower rise. These folks are already encroached upon in every direction and trying to live a peaceful life. And I just think if you're already R20, we need housing sites. And just to be fair to everyone, can we approve a plan we don't see? Half of the site is some elevation that someone at a different time will determine whether or not it is similar enough to the Panda Express, which may be outdated by 20 years at that point. And then what, we're going to make it look like a Panda Express that's 20 years old? I don't like that sort of bootstrapping of an approval. So that's why I can't support it. I can see others wanting to support it. We want to promote business, but that's my position.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Commissioner Camp?
I also cannot support this motion, and I'd like to explain why. There is too much going on too little land here. That we have the center parcel, which doesn't have a single extra parking space. It's exactly at the limit, and that's permissible. But it's sandwiched between, another busy fast food and an unknown church building in the future. We don't know what that's going to be, but we know it's going to be deficient on its acreage. And I don't want to be sitting here telling a church, well, we let you do all this on the other side, and now that you've backed into your own sanctuary plans, no, you can't do them. That's backwards to me. We know that the building is outdated. It is commendable that they want to invest their parish's proceeds back into reinvigorating that. There are elements of the site plan. Thank Kimley Horn for the designs that are pedestrian sensitive in this area, but there's just too much on too little land. And when we look at, as Mr. Beaman said, the proxy that we use, 3 acres isn't magic. 3 acres is intended to buffer these uses by noise, which maybe is addressed, but also from traffic. And that's, to me, not satisfied here. we've introduced a tremendous amount of traffic onto this site. And for those reasons, I could look at it differently if it was redesigned or if we knew more about the future church plans, but not as it's presented today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Are there any additional points of discussion? We have a motion on the floor.
The vote is open. By a recorded vote of 5-5, items 8 and 9, Virginia Beach Beacon Baptist Church and CFT NV Developments LLC has been recommended for denial. Our next and final item is item 10, Kenneth Leach.
Hello.
Good afternoon. I'm representing Kenneth Leach. My name is Alexis Tardif.
Alexis, could you just speak up a little bit, maybe a little closer, or maybe adjust the mic? Thank you.
My name's Alexis Tardif, and I'm representing Kenneth Leach. We're here for the open air market permit.
Yeah, and can you tell us a little bit about the application?
It's basically so we can stay there as a food truck and just be there permanently, and we don't move anywhere, so we're a stationary food truck. And
what is your relationship with the food truck?
Manager.
Manager. Thank you. Do you have any questions from the commissioners? And Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers?
I don't believe there's a representative listed on the disclosure statement. Is the property owner here to clarify that you have authority to represent them on this item?
I sent them over yesterday, or we sent all of the information over yesterday to Alexis Bailey. And she said that she had gotten it all taken care of.
Just bear with us for just one moment.
Marshall's indicating that the disclosure, it was in the supplements that was sent yesterday, a new
I just
disclosure
didn't see it
statement.
then. Okay. Thank you.
We have a question from Commissioner Byler.
Okay.
You comment that the food truck will stay there permanently and will not move. Do you intend to take the wheels off and have it as a permanent structure?
No, so the wheels would stay on, but it can move, but it won't. When we're closed for the off seasons, it'll stay there. But if it ever does need to be moved, the wheels are on there, so we can move it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Mouch?
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
I had some questions during the informal that had been answered in between the informal and formal. And the request for an open air market is acceptable to me. So my questions had been answered, and I apologize for making you wait through the entire meeting. But
No, you're good. You don't have any, are you sure?
yes.
Okay.
Are there any additional questions for the applicant? At this time, I'll entertain a motion and any further discussion.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Plumlee, seconded by Commissioner Parks. Any additional discussion?
The vote is open. By recorded vote, 10-0, item number 10, Kenneth Leach, has been recommended for approval.
Okay. That was our last application that we're going to be hearing today. This concludes the portion of our review of applications. We'd like to invite the public to join us over at Building 3. We're going to be touring the public site. So commissioners, please join us if you're able.